And we are live. Good evening, good morning, good afternoon, everyone. I am reporting to you from a very dreary Friday evening in the south of England. Welcome. Thank you for joining me. It's going to be a very interesting stream tonight, and I hope we can all sit back, relax, and enjoy ourselves. So just waiting to see. I can see 11 people are waiting already, which is awesome. Hello, everyone. I have the same setup as I had the last stream that we did. Main screen and a laptop, so I'll be able to read all the live comments as they come through. Monsignor Neo, hello, brother. Thank you for joining. Washington, D.C., hi, Ray. That's so cool. It's amazing just how fast everything happens. 20 people watching. Welcome, everyone. I am going to begin by sharing my screen, and we can get into the dialogue tonight. Facman from the UK, Monsignor Neo, thank you very much, man. Really appreciate it. Detroit, Craig, hi, how you doing? Los Angeles, that is awesome. I'm glad I can reach you there, but it must be midday there at least, round about now, right? Jeez, I don't know. That's the issue is it's 9 o'clock in the UK, and if the stream goes well, it might be 2 hours, might be 3. It's difficult to determine what time works best for everyone. West Germany, Ray, I'm in the south of England. I'm right on the coast. Yeah, it's awesome. Hey, everyone, welcome. Thank you for joining. 1 in the afternoon, okay, 1 hour off. Okay, David Williams. Yeah, that's okay, really. If you can't catch up, it's fine. If you can't watch it live, it's cool. I'm going to try and make it an in-depth stream going through a series of watches tonight. And I don't know, that's a good question, Monsignor Neo. Is Omega releasing another Speedmaster? That would be a good time. I mean, geez. One of the reasons why I wanted to start this stream today is because tomorrow is quite a special day for Omega. As we know, the 20th of July is a big day. And I'll just put this up just for everyone to see. I'm sure there'll be some kind of hallmark. The moon landing, as many people know, many of us believe, some people don't. Yeah, so I had an idea of talking about chronographs today as an idea, but it just so happened that I stumbled across a really cool auction that's going to be going live tomorrow from Watches of Knightsbridge. And if I open it up here, I can show you. Went onto their page. I stumbled across their page on Instagram the other day. MT Bone, hi, thank you for joining us. I hope you can stay a little bit longer this time around. So I stumbled on, also let me know how the audio is, if the audio is good. I stumbled on the Watches of Knightsbridge. I didn't realize that they were a fully set auction house. And lo and behold, they actually have an auction coming up on the 20th of July, tomorrow. And my thought was, okay, it'll be cool to look at their stuff. And would you believe it? They actually have a fully downloadable PDF of their catalog. And it's like just pure gold landing in your lap. So I've downloaded the PDF, and that is pretty much what we're going to be covering today. It's like all the content you'd ever need in a discussion, all in one place. And it's superb. So I have a list of the glossary. If I run through the first few pages, we get through the introduction, there is a glossary of a whole range of watches. They're all vintage, so I thought today would be nice to sit back, relax, and enjoy something from a different time. I have the glossary printed out in front of me. So, for example, you want to see Rolex, or you want to see anything, CWC, any of these names, I'll be able to pull them up at a flash with a quick keyboard shortcut, and we can look through the lots. I tried to do a dry run of this page, of this entire booklet. There's 148 pages to this, and there's over 200 lots. There are about 211 lots to go through. That's a lot of watches. I sat down and tried to do a dry run on a private little unscreened test just to see how well we could do. I know it's nice to talk about the design of watches and just run through them, the basics. Another nice thing about having a smart mouse is I can zoom in. So I tried to do a dry run, and I ended up going through about 40 pages in 40 minutes. And that is just too long, because if it's 150 pages with about 200 lots, that's a lot of watches to discuss. And if I want to keep this like in between 2 hours, and I don't know, I want to try and keep it as spare as possible as a discussion. So what I thought of doing is just, it'd be nice to have some interaction with everyone watching, you suggesting what you would like to see. If I jump back now to the glossary quickly, page 6, you can suggest what you would like to see. If you want to maybe screenshot this, if I pull this a little bit closer for you, screenshot this page, and during the discussion, you can sort of say, okay, let's have a look at Parmigiani or, I don't know, Rotary, Tag Heuer. There's some really nice Heuers, Jaeger-LeCoultre, Le Marnier, a whole load of vintage pieces ranging from, you know, the Dirty Dozen. It's a really nice selection. I think the majority of the discussion today will be focusing on Rolex and Omega, because that seems to be the majority of what they have. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to look at one watch first while everyone comes in and everything. We're going to look at a watch called the Favre Lebau. Luba. It's an interesting, very interesting name. And it's on page 18. So let me pull that up quickly. Before we get into Rolex, for example, I don't know why they haven't actually sorted out the page. Anyway, this is a watch they were very interested in the beginning. Before I get to Rolex, I will definitely get to Rolex. This is like, you know, Rolex is like having the cake and eating it. And YouTube saturation, man, don't worry. I will definitely try and mix it up with Heuer and everything else. But there's a really nice selection of watches. This piece, for example, what's also great about this is that the photos are so excellent. So like zooming in, you can see just the sheer amount of detail. It's not just like a stock photograph, you know. This watch is fascinating. It's called a, just once again, let's get the name up. It's called a Favre Luba, and it's called the Bathy 50, which is a bathyscaphe, basically. But what makes it special is that it has its own inbuilt depth gauge. And I think it has to be one of the coolest features a dive watch can have, because, I mean, if you think about it, a watch being water resistant is one thing, but a watch being able to go to depth and actually read out the depth while you're doing it is sick. I mean, that's the coolest complication you can have. So this watch is rated to 50 meters. It has a sub-seconds dial over here. I'll look at the movement just now for you as well. So what I can gather is that this red hand that we see, what it does is it centers on the dial with the triangle. And when you go to a certain depth, like, I don't know, 20 meters, both of these hands, the red hand and the arrow hand, work in tandem until you hit that whatever depth you go to. The red hand stays in that position if that's your max depth you travel to. And if you start surfacing, the arrow hand will follow, will go all the way back up to, you know, 6, 9, whatever. But the red hand sort of marks the point. At least that's what I believe. That's how it works. Fascinating complication. And it's the kind of thing that you would want to see in a mechanical watch. It's just so sick overall as a package. So we look at the stats. Another nice thing about the listings is that I can actually run through the stats. It's got a 17 joule manual wind movement, 40 mil diameter, screw down back, pressure diaphragm inside, allowing for indication of depth rating. Very, very interesting watch. I thought it would be a nice one to start with because it is quite unique and different. But what we can do is we can start from the beginning, because there's so many watches. I can't begin to tell you. If I just run through the first selection, let me do that now. I'll run to the very beginning again, and we can have a look. Page 1, I guess, or let's go page 7. That'll probably be the start. There's the first watch of the lot. Audemars Piguet calendar. I mean, you can't get cooler than that. Now, the size might be a bit surprising. Oops. I'm working on a magic mouse at the moment, so if it does do that weird glitchy thing on the side, that's me trying to learn how to use it, like the clutch on a car. So this piece has a standard calendar, you know, day and date, and it has a moon phase. And I think this watch, if it didn't have the moon phase, it would be a much more interesting piece. You can let me know if you agree or not. Fascinating complication. 36 mils, as I hope you can read at the bottom. Automatic movement, circa 1980s, which is quite fascinating for that time period. Very interesting. And keep an eye on the prices, because the prices are quite reasonable. I don't know whether these prices are starting or whether they are, you know, what they expected to go for. There's no real explanation about that. But anyway, I'm looking at the chat. Rick Wallace, it does have a weird face dial, I must say. It would look so much cleaner if it didn't have the moon phase, I think. And there is something mentioned about the dial being Clou de Paris. And it's okay. Interesting watch, nice complication. Don't know so much about the moon phase. I think it kind of ruins the overall look of the watch. And then we just run through the lots. I'll do a brief run through of some of these pieces as we're going. I really want this to be a sit back and relax stream. I don't want it to be like the last one that I did was a verbal dump. You know, it was just so much stuff going on at once. I was struggling to catch a breath. This time around, I hope to, you know, try and get some dialogue going, keep the conversation running, just looking at these pieces. And I think, you know, appreciating the vintage stuff. So this one, for example, based in the early 2000s, Audemars Piguet, Breguet numerals, very interesting hands, has a wave guilloche dial. If I try and bring it in a bit closer without the PDF glitching out. Very interesting positioning on the case. I like that there's a little step feature on the side, which is kind of reminiscent to 30s inspired pieces, very tank inspired as a watch. And then we run through, we've got a Parmigiani Fleurier, which a fellow watch wrangler owns himself. I think this is the version that he owns. And I'm sure you'll be able to read all the stats on the side, which is great. You know, you can see the caliber, see the size and everything else. Really like the color. It's almost like a, what would you say? A petticoat kind of blue, lavender sort of finish. Really dig it, really like the colors, the overall combination. And the case is fascinating. Unlike any other case you see nowadays, it's very contemporary. Doesn't look vintage, doesn't look modern. It has a nice blend of the two pieces together. And then we jump to Cartier. I don't know what you guys would like to see. If there's any mention on what you'd be interested in seeing, if you drop some names, I can go through and have a look at them. But Cartier, this is a quartz piece, solid 18 karat gold chronograph. The nice thing is, after observing it, I find that there isn't a running second on any of the sub-dials, which is nice. So you have your date complication at the 12 o'clock. You have a 30-minute counter on the right-hand side and a 12-hour counter. So I don't think it's a mechanical quartz. You'll have to correct me, because this is definitely not going to be a movement Rain Man session. I'm just running through the watches, looking at a few details that are interesting. And I hope you can see this all clearly as we're going. Porsche Maven, Clive's Tonda is a manual wind. Oh, very interesting. Very interesting. So the one that I'm looking at is actually cheap. Crappy Luxury, how are you doing? I love your stuff, love your chats. It's awesome. Love reading your stuff. And then jumping to another Cartier, this is a Pasha XL. Interesting piece. Interesting that it has a 27 joule movement. I hope you can see that okay. And this thing just fascinates me. It's a strange decision, very enigmatic of an older time period. You know, the screw down crown. I guess it aids the waterproofness of the watch, but it looks so peculiar. And the fact that this watch was made in 2006, you kind of have to ask yourself, aren't they sticking a little bit too close to their past? Very peculiar. Anyway, next piece. We will get to Rolex and everything else, I promise. We might just jump a few in the end. The shape is a tonneau. Yes, there are a lot of tonneau cases, as we'll be getting to those now. This is an interesting piece. Never seen it before. The company is called Quorum, who made this, and it was the Spirit of Ecstasy, I think that's the word, right? Yeah, Spirit of Ecstasy, basically in partnership with Rolls-Royce. And really it almost looks like, at first when I saw it, it looked like a Piaget. Has the same kind of idea as what a Piaget Polo might have. You've got these steps on the dial. It just looks like a Rolls-Royce grille. And you have this Spirit of Ecstasy icon in the center with an articulating lug length and everything. It's a very interesting watch overall. And it's the kind of watch you'd expect someone like John Goldberger to wear, wouldn't you say? It's got that vintage kind of feel, but yeah, it's cool. And then we zoom into the movement. Check this out. All hand engraved, beautifully finished. Exhibition case back, gorgeous. I think they only made a couple hundred of these. Looks like a mafia work. Yeah, it kind of does look like a mafia watch. I think that's what you were trying to say, Rob. Manual wind, 18 mils, made in 1997, if I believe. Pretty cool. Kind of dig it. Next piece, and then we jump back to Cartier. I mean, I don't know why they dropped a Breguet in here, but we have Thomas Burnett. Good evening. Welcome to the stream. Again, everyone, this is going to be like as much of a chilled out, laid back stream as possible. I realized that last week, or the last stream I did, I was going mad with the details. I mean, I barely had time to breathe. This time around, I want to sit back and like just run through the watches, look at the details. Too cool. Okay. Breguet Classique. The only issue with this one is it's 33 mils with a coin edge. You know, it's 33 mils for a watch like this. I don't know. I think it's quite a nice approach. It's too small for the modern man or woman. Actually, no, woman could wear this. But just the Classique itself, it's one of those watches that is so pivotal to watchmaking. You know, it has the Breguet hands. If it had Breguet numerals, it would be even more unanimous. It's a stunning looking watch. Pity it is at 33, but it has the coin edge case, it has the cabochon and everything on the crown. Looks great. And then we jump to a typical tank from the 1980s, 18 karat gold. I'm just looking at the comments. Yeah, it's interesting. I think it's because, Monsignor Neo, I think it's because of the size. 33 mils, as we know, is not a very reliable size. And no, it's not a Grand Classique. Sadly, the Patek listing isn't very good today. They have the television cases, quartz. I think they have quartz television cases. We'll get to it just now. But the Breguet Classique is just an icon. Standard tank, 18 karat solid gold. Love the cabochon on these watches. I think that crystal on the side just adds a nice touch. And I think as an overall wearing watch, there's some more Cartiers later. I don't know how many females are in the audience, but yeah, pink straps and everything else. I think we can go on to the next piece. This series of tanks are nice to look at. Here's a typical Fabergé tonneau shaped case, which is very nice. I'm just looking at the comments. Quarter's eye, thank you very much. Thank you very much for the comment. That's awesome. I'm really going to lay back and like enjoy this chat tonight instead of going full hog and just dumping you with information. Anyway, these Cartiers, I think the tank overall is it's an underrated watch. It has fallen out of fashion today. I'm trying to like fill the screen with them so you can see the three in a bit more detail. It's fallen out of fashion today. We can agree with that. But I don't think you can be wrong wearing one of these watches out and about. It is such a simple approach. I mean, the fact that they can take all these different case designs. We have a tonneau, we have a normal, tank normal, which is like a square kind of shape, and then we have an octagon. All of these shapes are so different, but at the same time, they can incorporate that same kind of dial pattern and feature. Very interesting. Anyway, all of these watches are 18 karat. They're all manual wind, as far as I know. Very nice watches. The prices are also pretty decent since they are solid 18 karat gold pieces. And then we go to the next set, and this is going to warm up very quick. We're going to get to some pretty cool heavy-hitting pieces later on. Breitling. This is a 1945 chronograph, a duograph. So this is actually a split second and a really slick-looking piece. Apparently, it's very rare. It has a starting bid, well, by the looks of things, between 15 and 20,000 pounds, which is mad. The movement's beautiful. I love these photographs. It's the reason why I decided to choose this today is because I can just pull the camera into the photographs and we can see it in detail. Stunning. Split second chronograph is one hell of a complication. You know, it's and then you just zoom in on the movement now and have a look at the size of that balance, all the adjustable screws and everything. I mean, they knew what they were doing in those days. It's like someone says, "Heyday, MT Bone," exactly. Anyway, guys, I'm going to try and keep to the subject on these watches. Maybe when we jump to Rolex in a second, we can try and like deviate a little bit more. But I want to keep this as tied in with the subject matter today, because there's over 200 watches that I'm going to be talking through. I don't know how many we'll get through in what period of time, but there's some stunning things in here as well. So this is a 1940s circa hooked dial tropical Breitling. Love the one thing that stands out to me is the hands. Hands are gorgeous. You can see that the tritium has completely eaten away at the dial. And they call it a hooked 7, I think, is because of this strange 7 on the dial. But again, it has a telemeter scale, if I'm right. It has a tachymeter scale. It doesn't have any kind of pulsation dial. So during the time of war, I guess it was good. And greetings from Texas. Greetings. Hello, everyone. CPS 7553. I'm going to have to get these names right. Oh, but it's a gorgeous watch. I love the bunt strap. I think that plays very nicely to the watch's aesthetic. This one is going for a much cheaper price than the last one that we just saw. I'll just jump. So this is between 2,500 and 3,500. We go back. This is between 15 and 20,000. This has a Venus caliber 185, if you know what that all means. A manual wind movement. I'm by no means a movement snob, so I'm going to be making mistakes, I'm sure. I'm just looking at the design elements of the watches that I like. And another thing that's just caught my attention is the beautiful script that they put on these Breitlings. Look at that writing. Stunning, stunning cursive. You know, they just don't make watches like these anymore, and it's pretty sad. I mean, this watch is actually, it measures at 38 mils, which is insane. From the early 40s, can you imagine? 38 mil watch. Awesome. And then we jump to a Co-Pilot, and this thing is just, it's stunning. It's one of those icons of the line, built in the late 60s, if I'm not mistaken. I'll have a look at the listing now. It's really cool. Atticus, salutations from Canada. Thank you for joining. Anyway, carrying on. So this piece has a rotatable bezel, allows you to count down time. Thick case, they call it. I don't know the reason why they call it that. I am by no means a vintage snob in all of these areas, but just browsing through. It's got a 17 jewel manual wind Venus caliber, and it's going to be starting between 8,000 and 10,000 pounds, which is one hell of a price. Very pretty watch. I love the stark contrast between the subdials and the dial itself. Interestingly, I've just noticed, you see how big the subdial is on the right-hand side compared to these two. So this would be your 15-minute countdown, and this would be your hour countdown and your running seconds. Very interesting combination. And another thing to point out, and I'll move to the top picture to have a look at, the lume on these plots basically highlight every interval. So there's a little bit of lume on these sections, which is also nice to look at. Salutations from New York City. Javier Vega, thank you for joining. Oh, it's too cool. Love reading these. Greetings from Poland. Oh, I don't want to make a mess of your name. Grazik. I'm Maleskowitz. I'm going to try get the names right if I can. Let me jump to a Navitimer. I mean, this is just an icon. 1966 Navitimer. Manual wind Venus caliber. I have to do a video on this watch. I have to cover this because it has such a deep history behind it. I'm not by any means a Navitimer aficionado. I haven't studied any of this stuff, but I think we can all appreciate the layout and what they've done. It is very busy. And the joke is, when this watch was introduced, if you think about the airplanes in the 60s, unless you were flying a commercial airline plane, you know, how easy would it be to calculate and read what you're doing on the dial on these pieces? Another interesting thing is it's 41 millimeters, which is crazy. And this is another example. This is from the 70s, 1971. And you can see the change with the sudden addition of colors all of a sudden on the dial. Once again, 41 millimeters. If I'm not mistaken, nowadays Navitimers sit at like, what, 45 mils on the wrist. 41 is quite a nice size. I mean, it's very small, especially when you're trying to look at the little details, but very interesting piece. And the prices are also impressive. 3,800 pounds. I hope that's the starting bid. I don't know what it means exactly. Anyway, jumping to the next set. Breitling Top Time. I didn't realize this, but it just dawned on me when I looked at the description. James Bond, Sean Connery in Thunderball wore a top time, and I think I should actually pull it up because I meant to do it. Let me just quickly pull this up for you. Top time Thunderball. What they did with the watch, and this is why it's so unrecognizable to the picture, is that they built a huge case around it. Let's see. Here's the example, basically. They built this huge, almost like a Seiko Paddy kind of case around it, and they used it as a quote-unquote Geiger counter in the film. Here's a better picture. I love Thunderball. Has to be one of my best James Bond films. I think it's my favorite James Bond film, bar none. I think the location's superb, you know, woman, everything. It's such a good film. And there's a lot of like use of the Submariner because it's a diving watch in the film. It's too cool. So this is the watch they gave him. They basically modified the top time to fit this huge case on it with this mesh style bracelet. And if you saw the film, he basically goes under a yacht and places tracking beacons, I think, to search for it. Anyway, I'm pulling up the watch again. So here's the top time unmodified, and really nice and subtle. It's got a little bit of history behind it, which is cool. 36 mil diameter, which is very old school, to say the least. And then we just jump straight into the 70s. And what was your first sign to tell you that it's a 70s watch? This is called a lip. And I'm looking back to the comments now. I love the Navy-Tivers. Yeah, the Navy-Tivers are awesome pieces. Ocean turtle. It's strange, you know. Very strange watch. So we jump to this now, the 70s piece. This color scheme is so typical of Bauhaus, which was something that was brought around in the the early 1900s, and it was revitalized in the 60s by Dieter Rams. It's a long story. I mean, I could go into that in detail. We could have a design discussion on this page too, but I think the color just pops so well. The combination is superb. First 15 is yellow, second 15 is 30, red is the last 15. So it's only a 45-minute sub-dial, but then you have a 60-second countdown and just your standard running seconds. Interesting watch. It sits at 37 mils, so it's quite contemporary in that sense. Still a little bit small for modern day, but very interesting. And now we're like straight into the 70s. And I think we might get quite boring with all of these pieces. We might get bored with these pieces because they're all kind of the same, but not really. This is the 70s, 1969 chronomatic. Interesting case on this Breitling. I'm not such a fan of these sub-dial hands that we'll see a lot of. It seems like it's quite a popular trend that they had in the 70s of adding these. They almost look like cricket bat or rowing oars in a sense. But the nice thing is how the 70s, one thing the 70s did that you have to like appreciate because it doesn't happen nowadays. The use of color in the 70s was bar none one of the best times for watches, because nowadays it's just sterile. We look at Rolexes and everything else and everything between Omega, Breitling, all these makes don't really express color as much anymore. But you have the orange everywhere signifying the chronograph function. I don't know so much about the cushion case. I think the cushion case is kind of old-fashioned, and it's sort of, it was on its last legs in the 70s. But they're fascinating watches. And again, you notice the hand, the sub-dial hands, they're almost like oars. If I get a closer look for you. Sorry if I'm trying to manipulate this on the big screen. They look like oars / cricket bats. Very strange. Just jumping to the comments. This is a Gigande. Don't know how to pronounce that. Gigande, I think that's how you say it. Has an Inca block mentioned on the dial. So this must have been a time when Inca block was released. I'm just looking at the comments. Orange. Yeah, Oris compressors are still there. Compressor cases are awesome. There's going to be a few compressors to look at today. Very interesting watch. And another thing about this piece, they call this licorice, the indices, they call them licorice indices. And it took me a while to wake up, but suddenly I realized they do look like little square pieces of licorice, all sorts indices, don't you think? With a little bit of tritium on the edges. Cool looking watch. Strange, but cool. I mean, they did such wacky stuff in the 70s. I hope you're able to see the listings and all the prices and everything else. This is called a Nevada chronograph. And I mean, this is, again, some of these watches are a bit, I don't know, I don't want to use the word tacky, but they're kind of very ingrained in the 70s. So, sorry, that was wine. I'm trying to stick on the wine tonight and not go whiskey. Wine is good. Wine is fine. So running through this, next piece, this is a Gerard Perregaux compression case. Strange looking dial layout. And I sat here for a while and tried to work out what this means on the dial. You've got 6, you've got 7, you've got 2 on the edges here. I don't know if you can see that well on the screen, but it's a strange combination. Of course, you've got your orange. It's almost like 70s was just orange. Just use orange and you'll be fine. So it's basically a compressor case. You have a screw down crown to adjust the bezel, and that's about it. Interesting complication. But the overall combination of things, the bracelet linked to the cushion case, kind of strange. And then we're back to our Favre Le Bar that I mentioned in the beginning. Is that how you say it? I want to get this name right. Favre Le Bar. Crazy name. The strap is like a licorice sort of finish. I dig it. I think it's such a sick complication. You want this kind of complication for a dive watch. It looks awesome. And then Aquastar. I'd like to know if you guys have ever used or seen Aquastar before, because I certainly haven't. It's a bit of a weird one, and you can tell by the prices. I don't think they're expecting much. Starting bid between 800 and 1,200 pounds a piece. Circa 1970s. I'll just flick through these. These are also compressor cases, screw down crown to adjust the inset bezel. But as we go through these, you'll see some interesting pieces. We'll get to military spec watches. Again, this is circa 1960s, this piece, but it looks like it's moving towards the 70s, and you can usually tell by the indices on the dials. Oops, that's just my mouse. Jumping over here, this is called a Sherpa Superjet. How cool is that inset track? That's a GMT complication that it's running, and love the color contrast. I think that's one thing that stands out. Crazy looking thing. I mean, it's just so bizarre when we see it nowadays. Design of that time was all over the shop, and now we're jumping to Heuer. Now, interestingly, this is basically Heuer's answer to a Navi timer in a way. These are the same movement that's found in the Monaco, caliber 12. You can tell that by the pushes being pushed on the side, or caliber 11, caliber 12. Crazy looking thing. I mean, I'll say it's very ugly, but that's just me. It doesn't look very good. Has a calculator style bezel, same complication, same watch practically. Starting bid between 1,000 and 1,500 pounds. I don't know what they expect to see from this. But as we move through Heuer, you're going to see some cool stuff. Like you got a television screen. This is a Silverstone, circa 1970s. This is just like the summary of the 70s right here. If you want one watch that sums up the 70s, you've got like this tobacco brown dial with, they got the oar, or the, whatever you would call these, cricket bat style hands. You got the pushers on the wrong side where the crown is. Television style case. Bizarre looking thing. Pretty cool though. Heuer Octavia, an icon. This is not as prominent as the a proper looking Octavia that we'll be getting to just now. Again, same caliber, just different approach. I think this bezel is adjustable. Really, I've said this a couple of times, but Heuer knew how to use colors back in the day. Love the red. The red highlights, it just pops. It stands out so well. Red on black with a white subdial. And they even added red to the date wheel. You can see that in the bottom. So sick. Dig it. Now we jump to the real stuff. This is going between 8,000 and 10,000 pounds starting bid. A Joe Seifer Octavia. Racing driver, American racing driver. I think he did all kinds. I think he did IndyCar, if I remember right. Check that color out. That blue is something to behold. Stunning looking combination. On a beads of rice bracelet. This thing has been worn to hell, but still collectible. The caliber, same caliber 12. It's amazing how some watches are so required, so important, while others using the same movement aren't as popular. Anyway, I'm browsing through the chats as it's going. I need to look at Quarter's Eye. I need to look at the new Octavia. Must be very nice to look at. Love the colors. I think they did a great job here. And now we're jumping through. This is a more enigmatic. This is a 62 Heuer Octavia. Starting bid between 18 and 22,000 pounds. We've got a faded bezel. This thing's also been worn to hell. But again, they knew what they were doing in this time. In the 60s, aren't the starting bids. Freddie Turner, estimates for final price. Thank you for that. Thank you for letting me know. I didn't know that. Because they don't say anything here, I was just expecting it to be thank you. So that's pretty good. Well, it's interesting you say that, because we're going to be going through vintage Rolex just now, and they have similar pricings to these, kind of, sort of. But yeah, good. I'll definitely have a look at that now as we run through. Thank you for letting me know. Yeah, Thomas Burnett, using beads of rice bracelets. Very interesting thing that they did. It's crazy. So looking at this watch overall, I think that the thing that really stands out to me that makes it so cool is the subdials, the size of the subdials. I mean, chronographs and Heuer in the 60s were just gold. So let's have a last look at this thing. Stunning. And then I think we're jumping to the Carreras next. Oh, no, we're not. This is the Heuer Camaro. Interesting. Once again, cushion case, very 70s, strange looking piece. Kind of, I don't know how the Camaro originated. I don't know its history. Interesting looking piece. It runs with a Heuer Leonidas movement. And then we jump to an example that I don't think works as well as the black dial. It does have a name inscribed in it, apparently, this one, Hermann Herget. Interesting looking piece. Very 70s. We can see that design has just jumped just because of the cushion case. All of a sudden, sharp cushion cases became like this new thing that everyone wanted to adopt. Now we're jumping to the real stuff. Circa 1960s, Carrera 45. This is just Heuer in its prime. I mean, look at that thing. This was at a time when you had, Omega, the Speedmaster, had just been released, and all of that. There's lots of Speedmasters on here, by the way. We'll be running through just now. Stunning looking watch. Love the colors, the cream dial, the set subdials. This is a real Heuer down to the max. Runs a Valjoux 92 movement, 17 jewel, 36 mil size. I think you could rock this watch nowadays, no problem. I mean, it's too cool. Really dig it. It's the Heuer. I mean, if you want a Heuer, you get a Carrera, and if you find one from this generation, I mean, it's going interesting pricing. It's going between 3,500 and 4,000. That's, as mentioned, estimated bidding for this watch. Stunning. And we have another one. This is a Panda dial with a more champagne style face to it. I don't know if I like it more than the other piece. I think the other one has a bit more charm. Same movement. This seems to be more sought after, between 4,500 and 6,500 pounds for this piece. But I don't know. I'm kind of torn. I much prefer the vintage, the standard white dial with the sub dials that have been sunken in. I think it's so much cleaner, looks so much more like a 60s inspired piece to this. So I'm interested in hearing your thoughts as we read through here. It is such a pity about Tag. I mean, it's sad because you look at these watches. This is a rotary, believe it or not. Rotary in 1968 pretty much tried to copy the Carrera style. They moved the date complication to the 9 o'clock, which is strange, and they put a subdial in 45 minutes. Strange looking piece. This is a 2000s, and I don't know if this was considered Heuer or if this was considered. It's Tag Heuer at this stage. Re-edition. This is a solid gold. It is sad about Tag Heuer taking over the company, I think, or Tag buying out the company. Heuer in the 60s was just prime. I don't think, when it comes to competition, I don't think you could have had better. Then we have Longines. This is a strange piece. Again, going through the 70s. I'll flick through these. I won't stay on them too long. I'm just checking how long the stream has been going for so long. We've already been doing this for 40 minutes. God, I need to flick through this. Would you like me to jump to Rolex now? Because this is going to take a while. Just comment yes if you want to see Rolex, because I think I'll be holding up for so long. We're on page, like 30 at this point, and there's a lot more to go through. Ulysses Nardin, strange looking watch. Interesting that they've taken the design. Almost looks like it's a design that's been taken off from Tudor, the snowflake, wouldn't you say? Strange looking piece. 28 jewel movement, which is fascinating. But yeah, some of these watches look pretty grim. This is interesting. This is a Radiomir Rattrapant, and it's one of 500 ever made. And Rattrapant basically means rat catcher, if I'm not mistaken. And You basically can pause the movement with this little button on the side and allow the second hand to catch up to wherever you paused it. Fascinating thing, pretty cool. And it has a homemade inbuilt. Look at this piece, and this is the problem. If I jump to Rolex, we're going to miss something like this Portuguese. This watch is superb. I don't think there aren't many watches in this category that really pulls together what this watch can, you know. So, okay, I'm going to jump to Rolex now. I will definitely jump to Rolex. Just want to go through a few more of these. This is just, I love the layout on these pieces. Love the numerals. Love how everything's spaced. This piece is 41 millimeters in diameter. And here's another one. This is a Rattrapant. Again, catch up. Really slick looking piece. We have an Ingenieur, IWC Ingenieur, which is nice and neat. Love the photography on this. The world is more than just Rolex. Yeah, I know. There's some really awesome Rolexes here. So I don't want to jump the gun, but we do need to get there because there are a lot of pieces to look through. But stunning 1980s circa. This thing is clean. I mean, this is a really clean IWC that they brought out. I'm sure everyone knows the history of the Ingenieur. Stunning looking watch. Believed to go between 10,000 and 12,000. Circa 1980 build. Strange thing that the bezel is not actually centered on the watch. Crazy. Anyway, going through, and then we go back to the 70s again, and we have IWC Aqua Timer, which is interesting, and Jaeger-LeCoultre Memovox, blue dial, nice inset blue dial, very interesting piece. Crazy 70s. I think I just want to look at this dial quick. There are so many watches on this lot. I don't know how I'm going to get through all of them. I am going to jump to Rolex and Omega just now because we have lots of 321 Speedmasters and everything to look at. Love the colors on this. That's the one reason why I think it's so cool. Yellow everywhere, highlighting on the tachymeter scale, the blue. This also has a blue dial, which is crazy, like a blue sunburst that you just never see. You don't see this nowadays. Very enigmatic of the 70s. Almost like a tuna can case. Anyway, there's so many pieces to look through. I don't think I'll be running through these JLCs. They're very simple. I think the Memovox is a very underrated piece overall. It's a watch that's seldom spoken about. And this is just a clear example. 1960, Arabic numerals at the quarters. Memovox, for those of you who don't know, I'll quickly run through it. Basically pull out the crown and you can adjust the crown of this little, where this little triangle is. You can adjust the crown to whatever position you want the alarm to go off. You wind the crown up, you set it, wind the crown up, and it'll chime at a certain point. And I think it's so useful. I mean, an alarm watch, JLC being known as the watchmaker's watchmaker, this is such a good example. This is a bumper case from the 50s. We have a reverso. There's so many watches. I don't know how I'm going to get through all of this tonight, but there are some really cool pieces. This is a 1930s reverso. 18 karat solid yellow gold. If you want a real reverso, get one from the 1930s, like the original time when these were made. Get it in solid gold and have the traditional style dial. And then you can't do wrong. I mean, this is the true JLC reverso. Stunning looking piece. Really dig it. And then we go to some really old pieces. I don't think you'll be that interested in these. These are, from the early 40s. Got teardrop styled lugs. This basically has day, date, and month. It's a full setup on this piece. Stunning looking watch, but again, the diameter being 36 mils doesn't really appeal to many people nowadays. What I do like is how the numerals have been set on this watch and how they're circled all the way around the dial. Stunning combination. Looks great. Yes, there are Tudors, Andrew Hatton. There are some awesome Tudors coming up. Some nice snowflakes and everything else. But again, these pieces, like I can't go through all of these. We've got a pyramid style piece here. I'm going to basically pause on these for a few seconds so you can pause on these watches and have a look through them if you're interested. You mentioned the Grana. Yeah, there was something, I think Grana is coming up at 40, in the next few pages it's coming up. Longines, this is when Longines was in its prime, 1955 chronograph using a, let's see, caliber 30CH manual wind, 18 jewel movement, 37 mil snapback case, pretty nice looking piece. Lemanias. Now, one thing you have to do, if you have a moment now, open a new tab and look at Lawrence of Arabia Omega. You will thank me if you see it. Lawrence of Arabia Omega. This is basically the same kind of time period. This is Longines alternative, and cool looking piece. I mean, it's so timeless to that time, should I say. We're moving down to Lemania now. Lots of Lemania watches with Dauphine hands. We know Lemania has a huge history. And just jumping through 1937, now we get into the more military styled watches. And Longines, now we're getting to the Dirty Dozen. Dirty Dozen has a fascinating history. I'm sure many of you know it. And you should have a read up. There's lots of good articles of it online to look up. Basically, a whole group, 12 different watchmaking groups worked in tandem together to supply the Allied forces with watches during the time of the Second World War. You have Lemanias, you have Buren, you have CYMA, you have IWC. It's a whole range of pieces. I think of all the ones that I like the most, I think the Jaeger-LeCoultre is the best. But this one, just mentioned by someone here talking about the Grana, I'll just have a look. I missed the chat. Here we go. The Grana, the Leicester Loves. Yeah, this one was the one that's sought after, apparently. I don't know the reason why exactly, but I think it's just because it's so rare, if I'm right. It's one of the few that were only made in small supply. So the Dirty Dozen all have that same sort of appearance. Here's the readout if you're interested in reading about the piece. Stunning looking piece, though. They all have that same kind of feel. Let me run through CWC, British Military. This has a ETA caliber. And then we can all appreciate CWC. The older pieces were awesome. Another Lemania from 1965. This looks very much like an IWC as we run through. British Military. These are all surplus watches given to the military at the time. All on NATO straps. Really awesome. From 1980, roundabout that time period, 74 to 80. More Lemanias. Single pusher chronograph movements. All for pilots, whether they are in the Royal Navy, whether they're in the RAF. Most of these are English-inspired pilots' pieces. Anyway, I wonder when I should jump to Rolex. We're on lot 75, and there's about 200 of them. So I'm thinking of going, because Rolex is practically at the end. I'm thinking of going to Rolex and then working my way up. Anyway, I'm just going to keep scrolling through this, have a look. These Lemanias are pretty stunning pieces of the 60s. You know, they have those syringe-style hands. Very neat layout. They all have service papers and return. This is fascinating. If you don't know already, I'm from South Africa. My family is from Rhodesia or Zimbabwe. And this is a very rare Royal Rhodesian Air Force Omega Speedmaster Mark II from 1973. My dad was in the Special Air Services during the time of the Rhodesian Bush War. So he might have seen people wearing these. He was in the helicopter crew during the time, jumping out of Dakota planes, doing huge drops. He was a Casevac medic. A lot of guys wore these things back in the day. So this is cool. It has its original hand-in script, a little bit of history behind it. This piece is also from the Rhodesian War, this is from the 50s. Rhodesian Air Force, another piece. These are quite rare pieces because Rhodesia is, Zimbabwe is a very small part of Africa. The world has changed a lot since then. This is an old school Omega. This is another one. This is a RAF piece, very similar to the Dirty Dozen. And what you can normally tell is that the dial, it's a field watch. So you have that little insignia basically saying that it's for military application. You'll see it on the front of the dial and at the back of the dial with its serial numbers. Has the standard layout. This is just typical field military watch. Another one. This is another British military piece, military Omega, Jaeger-LeCoultre. This looks very similar to an IWC. I don't think you can deny that layout looks pretty cool. Anyway, I'm going to have to rush through these. I'm on page 50 and I've got another 100 to go. I'm going to rush through these. IWC, I think this one's quite sought after actually, between 4,000 and 4,500. British military RAF pilot's piece dated to 1951. Very enigmatic of the 50s. You see you have the little T for tritium, the little triangle indicating that it's for military purposes. Dig it. Dig these pieces. Really nice. Thank you, Quarter's Eye. Trying to get through these fast. I would love to hold on them and just highlight the points that I like, but time is of the essence because this is going to take a while. Apparently, this is a very rare British Royal Navy nuclear sub Lemania. Interesting piece with an Inca block movement, also military. Another mil-spec Lemania. Stunning looking pieces, all from that kind of time period. This piece, I can't work out that name, Freslio Park. Also 60s, a lot of these watches died off. And then all of a sudden they dropped this military Heuer with a bunt. This has got a flyback chronograph movement inside it. I mean, this thing is stunning. If you want a real Heuer, this was circa 1970. Stunning looking thing. Rectum, yeah, these look like they've been to hell and back. I'll agree with you. They have been used and abused. And I think some of the Rolexes as well have been worked to death. This is a 50 fathoms from the 70s, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, from the 70s. Doesn't have the same kind of appeal as the originals. I think you would all agree. But yeah, going to keep going through these. A lot of these pieces all just the same. Dauphine hands, Luftwaffe pilot's piece, Glashütte Luftwaffe piece, Eternas. Interesting looking watches. This is a crazy looking Seamaster. Also very age appropriate to the 70s, I would say. They call it an Anakin Skywalker. No idea why. Blue, orange, crazy colors, strange looking case. I mean, it looks like that was cut out of a piece of steel. Bizarre. I also don't understand the 50 fathoms bezel that we just went through. It doesn't even have numerals on it. Running through this, we have a stop timer from Omega. We have a chrono quartz. Nah, not very interesting in these things. Then we have a Omega Ranchero. I mean, this thing is one of the icons. This is 1958. I would imagine. Would you like to see the? Yes, I will get to the price, Porsche Maven. Sorry, I will try and pull them up on the screen too while I'm going through it. Omega Ranchero from 4,000 to 5,000. There's nothing cooler than a Ranchero or a Railmaster, and this is pretty much period correct to when they were just released. Between 57 and that 58. These pieces were in their life. They also do look like they've been worked to pieces. I mean, they look really worn and used. Hey, lot 96, we've just jumped to watches that are actually important to tomorrow, if you believe in the moon landings and all the rest. We are going to be running through. This is the Ed White Speedmaster. This one looks like it's been to hell and back. Might even have been to space. Thrashed. The bracelet and everything else is USA patent. So this was probably a based in America Speedmaster. This has a 321 caliber. The best you need to know about this piece is that 321 calibers on Omega Speedmaster is the best chronograph caliber ever made. Column wheel chronograph movement, reliable, dependable, bulletproof. But these Speedmasters look like they have been worked. This looks like an oldie. This is from 1966. I mean, you can't even, the bezel in itself, you want to see if there's a dot over 90 on the bezel, for example, and you can't tell. Nice tropical finish to the dial overall, but the bezel looks like it's been worked. I mean, look at the bracelet in the case. It does look like it has been thrashed. Looking at the prices, I should go back to the Ed White to have a look. Sorry, let me just jump back one page. Oops, let's get back there. Between 10 and 14,000, they expect this piece to go for, which is pretty insane. If Clive Watch Wrangler is watching us, you got a hell of a deal, Clive. These pieces all have been worked. I mean, look at the bracelet on this thing. It's really stretched. But then again, they're in demand. Between 9 and 12,000 pounds, they're expecting this to go for. Still has a 321 movement. Looks great. This has a 321 as well, 1968 pre-moon. So now we're getting to the pre-moon pieces. And these will probably go for a lot of money with the right person. I think when it misses the bracelet, I might be wrong, but if it's missing the bracelet, then it loses a lot of its value. You can correct me on that. Original stock bracelets are very important with these pieces. But the condition of this is really good. I mean, in 1968, archives showing delivery to Kuwait. So this has spent its life in a desert. Doesn't seem like it's seen much wear in its life. Between 6,000 and 7,000 pounds. Pretty crazy when you think about it. Then we have another one. This is a 861, so 1968. If I'm right in saying this was the movement that was introduced just after the 321, which is a bit of a pity. I don't think it's as sought after. You can correct me on that too. Beautiful looking dial though. That's very neat. Even the case, everything looks pretty clean. I'll clean up around the pushers inside, but the clean looking dial overall. Very nice looking watch. And the bracelet doesn't look like it's been overworn and stretched and everything else. So it's a nice looking piece, between 4.5 and 5,500 for this piece. And then we have a few more beaten up pieces. This one is dated to 68. Also 321 movement. Look at the condition. You would think someone would go in and like give this a little bit of a clean. I mean, I'm someone who likes having watches that are pretty clean, but this one looks like it's been thrashed. And the extract from the archives, it looks very pixelated. I'll have a look. Basically not mentioned about the bracelet, where it came from. Case number not applicable. 1968 was its production, October. Geez, it looks hammered. But again, 3-to-1 movement, that's what you're paying for. You want that movement, which is the thing. This is a 71 piece, 861 caliber. Also looks thrashed. The bracelets, the edges, I mean, how do you manage to get rust? I don't know if that's rust or if that's grime. The dial as well looks pretty tarnished. And the story behind this was it traveled across the States, across the desert, across Australia, Gulf to Gulf. Okay, so there's the photograph with the owner, the original owner of the piece. Rick Wallace, yeah, I know, I'll agree with you. Some of these watches do look pretty thrashed, to say the least. This is also an 861, 4,500, 5,500 pounds for this piece. Chocolate dial, apparently. I don't see much of a chocolate dial on this watch, but again, it's just the finishing. You would expect it to be a little bit cleaner. 1970. Then we jump to a 1971 piece. Also, this has an 861 caliber. No bracelet, which is a pity. I mean, these are quite low numbers when you think about it. 3.5 to 4 grand for this piece. And then we jump to the Mark IIs. Nice chocolate dial on this piece. But again, they don't have as much appeal as the 321s and all of those pieces. Running through this, what is this about? This is a 1971 moon landing tribute. So this is probably one of the first tribute to moon landing pieces. This was a 861 caliber as well. No bracelet. I don't know why the bracelets disappear. Why people would throw away bracelets on these watches, I just don't know. But the dial's nice and clean. You can see the engraving. This is probably one of the first watches that had the engraving on the back, talking about being the first watch on the moon. Between 4,000 and 5,000 pounds for this piece. Not bad. Not bad. Pretty expensive though. I mean, for what you're paying for, I don't know, 321s. Here's another one, another 861, circa 1986. And this is running a 861 as well, yeah. Same thing again. The condition's pretty good, but again, it seems like these watches have been worn to hell and back for the most part. But I guess beggars can't be choosers. And then they drop in a digital chronograph. I don't know why they would do that. Quartz movement, I don't know. And then we have a Mark 40. This is a 1997. I think it's maybe a re-release. I don't know the history of the Mark 40, but they do highlight here, famed by Ben Clymer, founder of Heuer, inspired him to start talking about watches. Interesting. I'm not such a fan of the Mark 40. I think it's a little bit strange, a little bit too cluttered, but that's just me. It's very tied in with that kind of 70s motif in many ways. The colors are nice, but it's a little bit cluttered for my liking. I'm reading Freddie Turner's, is the 861 a cam lever? I do not know. I would imagine it is a cam operated because the 321 was a column. I don't know if it was. It'd be nice if someone could answer the comment. Tim also saying that Omega are going to put 321 in their regular production watch, which will destroy a lot. Interesting. That would be a very interesting approach, Freddie Turner. I don't know, would they be making a profit on those watches though? I mean, if they're going to, I guess that's one way to beat gray market sailing, right? Anyway, 861 is cam. Thank you, Freddie Turner, for that. Le Maniers, and now we go back to Le Maniers and all the other pieces. This is a 1971 reference, Speedmaster 120, 37 mil. Do dig the beads of rice bracelet and the bezel. Very 70s inspired watch. There's something above here that I missed. Oops. Oh, that's a better example. Circa 1969. This is a proper mil sub. I mean, I really dig these Speedmasters that were built for military service. They look so clean. It would be nice if it didn't have a date complication. I know some models didn't have date complications with them. Stunning looking piece though. I mean, you can't deny. Looks awesome. Love the strap relative to the patina on the dial. Are those replacement hands? Why would you replace the hands on a watch? I guess that's probably why the price has been dropped down. Anyway, again, this watch probably saw some heavy service in its life. Like the beads of rice, it looks very casual, 37 mils, not too bad. And then we jump to this. This is apparently a rare Omega Seamaster Big Blue automatic chronograph. Don't know the history of this piece. It uses a, let's see, a 1040, 22 jewel movement in this watch. I don't have the time to browse through all of this. Sorry about the glitching of the mouse here. 24-hour scale by the looks of things, with a running chronograph 12-hour scale here. And I guess this hand also does something else. Nice color scheme. Very interesting looking color scheme. 1976, very enigmatic of the time. Same kind of case design. And now we jump to a true Proplov from 1979. I spoke about Proplov in the last discussion. Strange looking watch. Very old school, very old fashioned. It has got to be one of the only watches that they really try to push out of the door. I mean, if there's one watch that they really try to release as soon as possible, I think this was it. Strange looking thing, but a lot of people love it. I mean, it's very, very iconic, but still strange looking watch. Not exactly pretty. Wouldn't call it a pretty looking piece. And then we jump to some really old Omegas. I mean, now we have a 35, circa 1935 marine waterproof gentleman's 18 karat solid gold Curvex. I mean, geez, this is from the 1920s. And we're really jumping back in time. Now we have something that's a little bit rarer. This is a 33.3 waterproof chronograph. Jeez, this is old. This is ancient. I need to run back. Let's have a look at the date. Made in 1939. I don't know why the screen is glitching out in that white flash. I'm sorry about that, everyone. I'm trying to control it. Very peculiar looking piece. I mean, this is so of the time period. This has a telemeter scale, which is pretty accurate. Surprising, because the war was just on the horizon. I think it had just started around that time. So telemeter, I don't know why the screen is glitching. I'm going to try and sort this out. Excuse me, everyone. Oh, don't do this to me. I don't want bright white flashing on the screen while I'm doing this. Anyway, strange looking piece, beads of rice bracelet. Then we have another Seamaster chronograph, circa 1962. Was this before? No, they call this a Seamaster chronograph. What were they thinking about this? Strange looking thing, because I mean, at the same time you had the Speedmaster that came out in 57. So calling it a Seamaster chronograph is weird. And then we jump here, 18 karat gold, 1968 Omega DeVille chronograph. That's quite stunning. 35 mil, caliber 321, get out of town. Ladies and gentlemen, if you want a watch that beats the competition, that has the movement that you want, this is the one. Has a 321 movement, gold case. You can always claim, take the movement out, put it in another piece. I don't know. And then we just jump through the standard Omega pieces. This is 1950s, 18 karat gold. The usual stuff. We have the 369 numerals around the dial. Pretty slick looking piece. Very, age appropriate, time appropriate. 1947 honeycomb piece. This is going between 2,000 and 3,000 pounds. Pretty nice. Also very old school. Very to its time period. Dig it. 17 jewel manual wind, honeycomb dial. I do like this Junghans styled subdial. The way they put the seconds hand in was very nice. Roger Smith has one of the Seamaster DeVille chronos. Interesting, Freddie Turner. I mean, I think that's the reason. If I just jump back to it, I think that is such a sneaky looking. I mean, you just don't know until you realize it's a 321. I think that's like the best kept secret for what you're paying and everything else. Very slick. And then this is the Patek auction, which is quite sad. I expected to see some better vintage pieces, some 4-digit references starting with 2. So this is a TV. I really like the ellipse, but not the TV ellipse. I think the gold ellipse in this oval shape, there are some gorgeous. Open up a new Google tab and look up Patek ellipse with the gold, just any kind of gold ellipse piece. They are gorgeous looking watches. I'm not so much of a fan of the TV style. That is 270s for my taste, but nice looking watch, really stunning. And then we've suddenly jumped across to Patek Philippe cocktail wristwatches. built around the 30s. I don't think we're interested in any of these diamond set Rolex cocktail from the 20s. If you remember the history about wristwatches, they were built originally for women. So the fact that women could wear these, how watches evolved, how men started using them as a practical tool, where they originally were intended to just be jewelry. We have some more examples. This is a Patek Philippe, dated 2002. I wonder if they got some inspiration from the Cartier tank for this one. And then we have ladies, Rolex Oyster, and I think we're about to land on Rolex. Yes, we are. Now I can sit back and relax for a little while, because now we can start discussing Rolex. This will be an interesting watch to debate on. So get to the comments and let's chat about this. This thing, the Leopard Daytona. I know producer Michael wears one of these, and this is one hell of a strange watch, and it has to be the weirdest Rolex that they make. How, like, I personally, I find it to be one of the ugliest Rolexes they make. I don't understand the market, who they're aiming this to. Are they just trying to like grab people's attention? Are they trying to make a statement? And I really don't know why this PDF is acting up. I really wish it didn't flash like that when I zoomed in and out. I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to close it and quickly restart it. Sorry, guys. I'll be right back with this. So irritating. Now that we just get to Rolex, I want it to be clean. Okay. Such a strange looking piece. Between 22 and 28,000. Horrifying. Anyway, now we jump to something a bit more at home. We're looking at a day date, diamond set dial, 1979. That they don't do it for me. But Monsignor, do you like the leopard print? Nick Cage, I think Nick Cage actually wears it. You're right. Rock and roll. It does feel that. It does feel kind of like the watch that you'd be wearing in the late 60s and the 70s. I would imagine Robert Plant wearing one of these. Front stage, Zeppelin, rocking out. 18 karat, another day date. I don't know how they can get rid of the bracelets on these watches. It's a pity. Hope you can see the prices. I'm going to be rolling through this. Hope the prices can fit on the screen and you'll be able to read them. Let's see. I really like this this kind of tiger's eye. If I'm right, it's some kind of walnut dial they put on these pieces. Waco actually has one of these, a Rolex. I think it's a quartz. It's a day date Mecca quartz, and it has this dial layout, and it uses the same kind of Mecca quartz case. Very 70s inspired. Interesting looking watch. I think the brown strap works very well with it too. Anyway, reading through the comments. Steel Sports Rolex, no date Cyclops. Don't worry, I'll be getting to all of that now. We're going to be getting to more sports watches now. So here's another day date with a Buckley dial, they call it. I don't know where the Buckley name came from. It's funny enough, I've only ever seen Theo and Harris talk about Buckley dials in detail. When I look for it online, any kind of research, there isn't much to be found. So I don't know how that term came around. It'd be interesting if someone could reply in the chats where the Buckley dial format originated. I think the gold on gold is a really nice combination for this piece. It's a 1969 day date complication, and interestingly, when you look at the batons, that's one way you can really tell the age of the watch. Rick TikTok from Scottish Watches. Are you guys actually watching this show? That is a privilege. Thank you, guys. I love your stuff. I'm actually Scottish. Just a heads up. My name kind of gives it away. So yeah, if you look at the batons on these pieces, that's generally a given of when you know what time period they were made in, and that's very late 60s, 70s inspired, the way they approach those batons. Really dig the gold on gold. I think it looks great. Invented for you, Lester Loves. Invented for you by Theo and Harris. Yeah, it feels like it. I mean, I don't know what to believe nowadays. Silver dial. This is a 1601, 18 karat. Nice, pretty looking piece. I just want to check how long this chat has been going on for up until this point. 1 hour, 9 minutes. That's pretty good. We're actually going to be able to run through all of these pieces in this time. Okay. Tudor Oyster date, 1966, small rose. What do you think? This is basically the Tudor Ranger before it was a Tudor Ranger. We certainly are. Scottish enough to come on the show. I don't want to drop a Scottish accent in, Rick. I might embarrass myself, but yeah, I am from a very old Scottish family. Anyway, so let's keep going through this. Welcome. Lester loves watches. I'm trying to keep my eye on the chat while scrolling through this. So this is basically the Tudor Ranger before it became a Ranger. Oh, it does actually say Ranger on the dial. I don't see any mention of Ranger on this description. That's pretty poor, wouldn't you say? Anyway, nice Jubilee bracelet. I personally think if I was wearing an Explorer, I would be wearing it on a Jubilee. I think Explorers on Jubilees is a fascinating combination. And now we jump to the infamous Archie's, the Pontiff himself, his 1016, 1974. I think he got his, it was an 80s reference, if I remember right. I always find it sad when tritium falls out of the hands on these pieces. I think it's kind of it's quite a pity. I don't know so much if you guys believe the same thing, but having that skeletonized tritium loss, it's a pity. It kind of ruins the watch's look for me. And you can see the radium has sort of gone like a fugly lime green color. I mean, you can't track that. Anyway, nice looking 1016. Oh. And then we get to a gem. 1968 1016. This is expected to go between 11 and 13,000 pounds. 36 mil matte dial. I mean, can you not get cleaner than that? 1016 is, oh, this piece especially. This is the one. Seller's remorse. Lester, yeah, Lester loves watches. I would be bleak too, personally. But that's not saying that you can't correct it. I mean, congratulations on the man for getting 4 Pateks. I don't care what anyone says. The Pontiff needs Pateks. Archie Luxury is a Patek man through and through. I think it's great. I mean, getting on the Rolex hype train is one thing, but having Pateks as your collection, a thing that you really love, is so much more important than following what everyone else is doing. Me, myself, if I was going for a watch now, if I wanted to just drop all the money I'd saved on a watch, I'd be buying a Patek personally. Something with a bit of history and something made of gold, something to celebrate the moment. This is a gorgeous piece. Really nice looking watch. Dig it. Be interested in knowing if anyone has a 1016 piece. And yeah, modern regimen. I wish they'd kept these numerals too. Simple, basic layout, no modern flares or anything. I mean, even if they just had to fill them with gold around the sides. This is such a clean looking watch. Looks like it's got service papers and everything with it. Gorgeous. Sold in the UK in 1972. So this watch maybe is a one owner watch for all we know. Great example. Pity about the bracelet being so scuffed up, but geez, 1968 Explorer 1, you can't get better. And then we have a blackout. Oh. Now, I don't know the history of these blackout pieces much. I just know they were made in very small supply. I'm interested in knowing in the comments if anyone knows the story behind them exactly. But there is this huge hype around blackout dials and Explorers. This was made in 1991. Looks like it comes with papers and everything else. Between 9,000 and 12,000 pounds for this piece. Rene Cortez, I was mentioned very favorably in the last Archie chat. Thank you. That's very nice. I think it might have been Clive. I think Clive mentioned me, if I remember right. There was a great influx of people who actually joined the page because of Clive and Dr. Bruce mentioning me, and that I really appreciate it. And I need to, like, before coming to an end of the stream, I just want to, again, thank you everyone for joining. It's a lot of fun doing this. I hope you're enjoying the stream. It's just, compared to the last one that I did, this is a sit back and relax. Just me rambling on. I'm sticking to wine and not whiskey tonight. Anyway, Archie hasn't, I don't know, he doesn't have a mental illness. He's, he is, if it wasn't for him, this is the honest truth, and believe what you want about what anyone else says, but he is the guy who got every one of us on this platform. If it wasn't for him, I wouldn't be into watches, I guarantee it. Look at all the startup pages. That's why I call him the Pontiff, because he really is the Pontiff in that sense, that he started this craze. And I'm sure, I think I started doing this in maybe 2014, watching his stuff. And even if he does have his moments, he still is the man you refer to with a lot of his stuff. I mean, with Patek, it's one thing to say, I've owned these watches and everything, but the fact that he can just go full on Rain Man with the references and just browse through the references, the 4-digit numbers off pat without even like referring to a book, I think it's too cool. I appreciate him for that reason. He does have a hell of a knowledge, not just from experience, but the watches that he's collected over the years. So yeah, whatever. I know he has his ups and downs, like we all do in life. Committing to YouTube is very hard. So, still, I appreciate the guy because he has done a lot for this community. And if it wasn't for him, a lot of us wouldn't be here in the first place. So yeah, he's a nice guy. Jumping to this, now we're going to a 14270, 1996. Nice, clean-looking watch between 2,834. That seems quite low. That's the expected bid, if I remember right. Anyway, so yeah, stunning-looking watch. I mean, this is just your typical 36 mil, pretty clean-looking piece. And then we jump to a Swiss-made dial. This doesn't have tritium by the looks of things. It's a 2001 reference, so no. But it does have, it's solid end link, and it has a holes case. I'm just zooming in. And if I'm not wrong, that's quite collectible. No, solid end link with a holes case. It's a little bit more sought after than most. Interested in knowing what you think. You mentioned what year, Hans? Is that the 36 mil? 1996, 36 mil Explorer. And this piece is a 2001 with a Luminova dial. Looks like some of the paint has come out of the 24-hour markers. Between 3.2 and 3.6, that's a very low estimation for its overall price. I mean, I don't know. I don't understand how they're arranging all of this, but it's cool looking. Oh, what a stunner. Oops, the mouse is playing up on me. This is a stunner. I mean, geez. If you want a Polar Explorer, 1984, 16550 cream, non-hyphen double T. So basically, it's a Swiss double T dial, as we can see here in the corner. Very barely. I hope you guys can. Awesome. Creamy patina, creamy dial. I mean, this is just, it's golden. The best part of all is that it does not have service hands. This is clean. This is how it was intended. And the story behind it is, I might be wrong if I'm saying this wrong, but the paint that they applied just basically degraded. It was one of the first times that they introduced this model. In 1984, they were just coming off the back of the 1655 Explorer, which is one of my favorite watches. Gorgeous looking piece. Hans, you're asking, good to see you again, Crappy Luxury. Thanks for coming back. When is the auction, Hans? It'll be Saturday, tomorrow. Tomorrow, I think midday. I might be wrong. Just have it. If you go on to watchesofknightsbridge.com, you'll see all the details. Mr. T-Bone, thank you very much for joining. I'm sorry. I'm again, everyone. I'm sorry for this time. This time of filming. It's coming up to 20 past 10 in the UK, and I know everyone else in the world. A large majority of my audience are in the States, so I'll be doing more of these on Saturday and preferably later on in the evening to try and catch you guys. But I just thought this would be a nice archive for everyone because there are some stunning watches dotted in between everything else. Gorgeous looking Explorer 2. I think that combination, if you want a Explorer 2, that's the one. What's the reserve on the Explorer 66? Let me go back and have a look. No. 11,000, 13,000. That's what they're expecting. I don't know what that would be in dollars, but that's pretty hefty. That is a pretty hefty price. 11 to 13,000 pounds for this piece. But it is a gorgeous example. I mean, you could do a little polish yourself and clean up this bracelet a little bit. Use some 7,000 or 5,000 grit sandpaper. Give this a clean. I mean, that is beautiful. The dial, everything is so clean about this piece. Matte, unpolished. At least it looks unpolished. It's difficult to tell if we look at the case. Anyway, let's jump to more sports pieces. I remember seeing some better stuff further along the line. Okay, now we have, this should go for a lot of money since technically they are out of production, right? This is a stunner. In all honesty, I've never been much of a fan of the black and black GMT pieces. I think it kind of loses me in places. I'd much prefer a no-date Submariner with this kind of configuration, but I know a lot of people like it. And since this has just been out of production, dated 2013, as all original paperwork, I'm sure this is going to go for quite a lot of money since they are now collectible. Now, the polished center links, you know, GMTs, we're going to be getting through to some 1675s just now. And I want to talk through some of those details because I, too, am not, especially on this piece. It's a pity they don't have Daytonas at the auction. I'm not a fan of polished center links on GMTs. We'll get to that just now. Air King, this, I mean, I did a video about this a long time ago. I think I should actually try and redo it or do something a bit different about it. This Air King was pretty much Rolex's excuse to get rid of these solid gold dials, solid gold numerals on the dials. So all they did was they slapped on a track. It's an interesting combination, but the gold elements just sort of clash against this, and viewing it in different lights is difficult. How to clean and polish your Rolex. Oh, Max, I'd like to do that, actually. Be a nice discussion to have. I can tell you as a designer, the secret, anyone who works with something hands-on, just go up in your grits of sandpaper. I mean, when I arrived in the northern hemisphere, I just realized how much sandpaper was at my disposal. You can work your way up from like 1,000 all the way to 10,000 grit sandpaper, and you can clean anything to be as shiny or as polished as you want. Yeah, so the Air King is a strange piece. It's a pity because the history of the Air King, I'll actually, as I review this, I will link to a video. I talk about the Air King being an underappreciated icon, basically. The story behind the Air King was that it was designed for RAF pilots at a time. And the older pieces were stunning. I mean, you look at the Thunderbirds and all of those watches, they were such good examples of the time period. And now with this piece, it's amazing that Rolex is still holding on to the Air King line because they are, you know, it's practically dead. But it would be so cool if they could just appreciate the Air King a little bit more and drop an Explorer dial in with a white, if they had a white Explorer dial with a chronograph bezel, it would be such a killer. I think people would dig it. Anyway, nice piece. I like the color combination, but overall, it's a bit of a clash. I mean, let's be real. Here we go, Bamford. Whoa, I haven't looked at Bamford watches before. So, Bamford's basically like a West Coast customs company that takes watches and modifies them, puts their name on them. There's one really cool name that I want to look at now since we're on this. Tempus Machina is a fascinating company. If interesting when you hear this, if you would like me to go and jump onto their page and just have a look at their watches, because they basically take modern Rolex and they mod them to make them look old school and everything. They're really sick. So I don't know what to think about Bamford. I don't know how do they get this. It's a PVD coat onto the cases, so I don't know how resistant it is to scratches and blemishes and everything else. And this is quite a nice looking GMT. This is a no, it's a Submariner. Excuse me. Orange all out. I don't know. I'm not exactly a fan of black on black watches. I don't think, you know, when you're wearing a steel watch, you want it to express the material. I'm a purist in that way, saying that if you want to wear gold, it's good to express gold in the color it comes from. So with steel, it's nice to express steel. It's a gorgeous color overall. Like titanium, they all work together. But blacking out the watch, it's not exactly my pull. But then again, we look at the detail. They've actually put a carbon fiber styled dial to this piece, which is fascinating. It looks like someone took a highlighter pen and just sort of covered everything up. Pretty cool. So they basically just take the watch, PVD coat it, remove some numerals, add a new dial. Bob's your uncle. You have a Bamford style piece. Prices, reserve prices between £8,000 and £10,000 for these two pieces. I think the Milgauss works a bit better, actually, in this category, because the Milgauss has that anti-magnetic story behind it. I love the Milgauss. I think it's such a cool looking, quirky. It's one of Rolex's quirkiest pieces that they make. Any Grand Seiko? No, they don't have any Grand Seiko on today, OMAX, sadly. These are more along the vintage line of things. And I don't know what this is. Okay, this is the first time I'm seeing this. This is they call it black-coated stainless steel Bamford Rolex Mark Quinn, circa 2013. What was the thinking behind this thing? I mean, you can't even tell the time. Let me know if you can actually tell the time on this watch. That's one thing that bothers me about watches without numerals on the dials. It's nice and clean, yes. I mean, design is all about just removing and removing until you're as far behind as possible, just to like clean it up as much as possible. But then you get to a point like this where you're putting airplanes on the dial. There are no indices to read. I mean, 10-10, I'm guessing, you know, that's all I could assume. Very strange looking piece. Yeah, I agree. We have this globe in the background. I don't know what the material is. It might be like some kind of blend. What are they doing here? I have no idea. Estimated price between 10 and 12,000. Apparently it's a sea dweller. It's not actually, it's a deep sea dweller, excuse me. It's not even a Submariner. It's a 44 mil. Oy, I don't know. That is strange. Why would you make, you know, a GMT inspired watch around the form of a diver's piece? It's strange. King Albert, hi, nice to have you on here. 10-10 because mid-hand. Yeah, so I thought so. It's strange. The Z-Blue Milgauss is awesome, Renee. Really love it. It's one of the watches that I think just sings. And now we're jumping to Rolex. If we know our friend of everyone, Austin Daniels, he has been such a sucker for Pepsi GMTs, and it's amazing how he's been able to go out and get inserts for every, you know, he's got a blacked out insert, he's got a Coke and a Pepsi insert, taking the watch in and getting it fixed. It's too cool. As I was saying, the Pepsi, any kind of GMT Rolex, I think deserves a Jubilee bracelet. That combination just works, because if we know the history of the GMT, it was a watch inspired to be a dress watch, you know, a functioning tool watch, but also a dress watch for people who are traveling all over the world. And the design language of the GMT is a bit peculiar. And I did a video a long time ago. I think I should make another one talking about just how strange the GMT was when it came out. And actually, the Sky Dweller is a more accurate example of what you would expect early 50s travel inspired, you know, day-date kind of complication watch to fit the build for someone traveling in planes. I'll talk about, I think I will do a more in-depth video about that at a later stage. So this watch is kind of, you know, running on the back of the chronograph. It's just your Submariner case, a little bit of a difference to the crown and the crown guards, but overall, you know, I dig it on the Jubilee. This works great on a Jubilee altogether. And then the Pepsi, I think Pepsi is just one of those colors, those combinations that have just, it's one of the most iconic two colors on any watch. And it's amazing when you think about it. Amazing when you think about the past of the watch. And again, I look at these two and I am drawn to the Jubilee over the standard Oyster bracelet. But these models, these 5-digit references did not include polished center links. And I have a theory about that. Let's actually discuss that quickly. You might find this fascinating. The Jubilee we know has a polished center link throughout. And my understanding is that, you know, when it comes to a manufacturing point, I don't know, is there an easier example? Let me just go back and grab that black GMT again. You're on the assembly line, right? And you're about to push out these watches. You've got a Submariner in one hand, you've got a GMT in the other. Helmut, hi, welcome. Thank you for joining us. Just landed on Rolex. So if you can imagine, you have a Submariner in one hand, you have a GMT in the other, same cases, same kind of proportions, and you say, okay, how can we spice up the GMT? Instead of adding a Jubilee to the watch, which is what many people wanted. I mean, you think about the 90s watches, like practically every second piece came on a Jubilee bracelet, or no, not that close. Maybe every fifth watch came on a Jubilee bracelet. What they did, which was pretty genius, was to just polish the center link of an Oyster bracelet and say, hey, presto, we now have a watch that fits the build of a more luxurious, in quotations, GMT. But at the same time, it just doesn't fit the bill. For me, at least, it just doesn't feel like that quintessential GMT. You either keep it brushed or you jump to a Jubilee bracelet on the piece. So in that way, I know it's might be sacrilegious for me to say, but I prefer the Batgirl GMT over the Batman because of that Jubilee bracelet. I think it just adds that extra little bit of dress, a little bit of visual difference, a little bit of visual interest. But at the same time, it's just so cool. I mean, you can't go wrong with the GMT. It's one of the best movements that Rolex makes. Do I call you IDGuy or by your first name, Helmut? IDGuy is cool. IDGuy is cool. For the time being, I mean, geez, my name's probably going to be found out in the end. I'm not trying to hide it or anything, but I think the whole idea behind my page was to just be a place where I could be more of a nobody, just someone who talks about the design of watches. No ego, no personality, none of that. I just want to be someone who talks about the design, looks at the details, you know, keep it simple that way. So this is a 1997 Pepsi that has a faded bezel. I don't know if I'm much of a fan of the faded Pepsi bezels. I like it when there's an even fade, but when the red fades and the blue doesn't, it's an interesting thing. I wonder how that actually worked out. And this being a Swiss dial, this is a tritium dial, if I'm not mistaken, 1997. I might be wrong. Between £6,500 and £7,500. Too cool. Nice looking watch. Again, love the brush bracelet over the polished. And then we jump to Tudor. We've got a few Tudor pieces. Oyster date. I'm not so much of a fan of these 90s references, oyster date dials. They don't appeal to me anywhere near as much as snowflakes and just the standard Submariner style dial. But it is still cool. I mean, geez, can't go wrong with a Tudor. This probably has an ETA movement, if I remember right, a 2824, yeah. Tudor Oyster Prince. And now on the next watch, I'm pretty sure is a snowflake. Oh, my loved and loathed Kermit Submariner. This looks clean as. Look at the details on this guy. Oh, that is sharp. This watch has never been worn. Look at that. Stunning. Just out of interest, I'm reading Reza's comment. Do you think the ceramic steel Daytona is one of those watches that can be your only watch, like a sub can? Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. The ceramic steel Daytona, it's like, it has everything and more that you would want. It leans more towards dress than it does sports, of course. I mean, but I mean, geez, if you had to go for a panda dial ceramic Daytona, you could wear that every day of your life and the watch would still look perfect 30 years from now, you know? Anyway, yes, this is Adrian's piece. I think his is an early reference, if I remember right. Adrian from Bark and Jack. Pity he's not on tonight. I like to have some banter with the guy. He's cool. By the way, he also launched a new podcast recently that seems like his first guest is Paul Thorpe. Paul Thorpe, interesting gent. Love his talks. He has more experience than any of us on this platform when it comes to watch dealing, when it comes to understanding watches and everything else. So I think that might be an interesting blend. Damn, I'd love to go on a podcast and chat to Adrian and all those guys one day. It'd be cool. So yeah, this is the original box, between 10 and 12,000 pounds. This watch is going for. Now I have a bit of a, oops, oh no, don't do this to me. Come on, sorry everyone, just jumped across. Oh no, what are we doing? What are we doing? We're missing something. Here we go. I have a love-hate relationship with this piece. I had a controversial video that I brought out a long time ago talking about how the Submariner is too green. I was mainly focusing it on the Hulk Submariner. And we know that the 50th anniversary of these pieces, they came out with these green bezels. It just doesn't speak to me. That's just me. It's just one of those watches that if I was Irish, for example, at the same time coming from South African, green and black is pretty much our South African colors when it comes to rugby and like our main sports. So in that case, if I was a supporting player, I would love this watch. But the colors to me it's just not as versatile as something like blue, black, white. But you know, it's still a cool looking watch. You can't. I mean, this thing is a collector's item. You should never, if you own one of these, don't get rid of it. It's a 50th anniversary. If you want to get rid of something, get rid of the 60th anniversary, because 50th anniversary is a mileage, a marking point, as in what's happening tomorrow with the Speedmaster, that whole launch. Apparently there's going to be a Speedmaster launch. It'd be very interesting. 50th anniversary watch makes an impact. It is the 50th of moon landings, right? 68, 69. Yeah. Anyway, I'm just looking at the comments. Scottish blue bezel, absolutely. Geez, I'm so down with blue bezel watches. Blue bezel, blue dial. Love to have a beautiful cross through the middle of it. I'm so down. Blue is just something else. Or even clan, you know, like a tartan, some kind of nice tartan finish to dials. Oh, it'd be beautiful. Imagine a Richard Mille with a tartan inspired like case or something. That'd be amazing. Red ceramic. You know, yeah, the red ceramic on the GMTs. We're jumping back to some more pieces. This is a 6750 transitional, just after the 1675. This is a gorgeous watch. Service hands. Why would you put service hands on these watches? God, it's hard. You know, it tanks the value of these things, as we all know. I mean, you lose like 3,000, 4,000 pounds on these watches. I'm just having a look. Reza, thanks. That was you personally talking availability and equation. If you could only have one watch, certain Panda, Daytona, Pepsi, GMT, classic sub-date, which would you go for? Very good question. You know, I'm not the kind of person who's interested in what everyone else wants. So I wouldn't be buying the watch for resale. I mean, that's why I'm such a fan of Omega, because their watches are just phenomenal. The movements are superb. Finishing, they've really pulled it out of the hat. But if I had to choose between a ceramic Panda, Pepsi GMT, sub-date, very good question. I'm just holding on this for a while to have a think. I think of all the watches, when it comes to versatility, you want something that has that flash of like dress, but has the formality and the sporty nature to it. And I think it has to go to the Panda Daytona. Black and white as a combination is just so, it's lively, but it's also subtle. The Pepsi GMT, I'm really not a fan of the Pepsi GMT. And it's down to the ceramic bezel in many ways. What they've done to the watch is superb, like the movement and all of the details. I'm talking the newer references, by the way, not the older references. I'm just going to hold on to this Reza's comment for a while. So the ceramic Panda I would take, just because as an everyday wearing watch, you can do it no problem. The ceramic bezel was a great introduction just for the sake of rigidity, strength, wearability. It won't fade, it won't age. And as you wear the watch, I'm sure if you wear it hard, the polished of the center links would probably wear off. And it's a watch you could wear on any occasion, where I think, you know, the sub is cool. It's very ubiquitous. The Pepsi GMT, it's a bit bright. It's a little bit flashy with the Jubilee bracelet. Of all the watches, I think the Oyster bracelet with the polished center link is the bracelet for a Daytona. So it's interesting. There's always this divide. For GMTs, I think Jubilees work perfectly. I think they just suit the watch down to the ground. But for a Daytona, I think a polished center link bracelet looks great. Just a standard Oyster bracelet also looks great. Anyway, I'm missing a lot of Scottish. Yeah, so Helmut, I am Scottish. Yeah, I've got some Scottish, got some German, got some English. I'm a little bit of a Bruck in that way, or I don't know. Anyway, just looking at this. What about Planet Ocean? Yes, there's so many comments I've missed. Sorry, guys. Well said about Omega. Thank you. Yeah, I really do appreciate Omega for what they're trying to do, and the watch they brought out, that 2018 Seamaster. I mean, geez, the last live chat I did, I go into detail about it. It's one hell of a watch. Can't deny. Rich Buddy, digging the silver disc on the black dial Daytona. Panda doesn't seem to have them. Yeah, another thing is, I wish there was a Daytona to look at. I did want to talk about chronographs, and since we're doing this live, screw it. How long have we been going for? Hour 37. I'm going to pull up a Daytona now and have a look at it. There's a fascinating discovery I've made. I don't know if I'd call it discovery, but since we're on the topic of Daytonas, you might as well look at it, because none of these auctions have Daytonas on them. And now Safari's not starting up for me. That's great. Geez, talk about delayed time. That's a problem. Come on, Safari, work with me here. Cool. So Rolex Daytona, we're going to go 116,500 LN, and just discuss one thing that's quite interesting about these new pieces. There's a couple of things. I mean, I've made a lot of videos about Daytonas in the past. I mean, you see, I'm getting more and more appreciative towards the Daytona, I think, and that's one thing. I never used to be very drawn to them. I've always, the Submariner was one of the watches that started me on this whole journey. Some things to point out on the Daytona that's not often mentioned. Come on, internet, do me a favor, please, and load something. Need to find a good picture for you guys. Sorry about the delay. Here we go. Watch center. For some of my earliest followers who've seen this before, I talk about the dials on the Daytona. If we know the history of the Zenith piece, and I might as well just pull this up since we're doing this now. Basically, there are basically three references that I want to look through. The Zenith Daytona, the new modern piece, and the much older I'm just going to pull up the Paul Newman as well, just for fun. And just look at something that's quite fascinating about these three references. So the Paul Newman Daytona, let's go with a Hodinkey's. This is such a good picture. Paul Newman Daytona, bright, easy to read, great. And when it comes to legibility, when it comes to being a chronograph, and there was a mention by Helmut about bad for eyesight, okay? Having full subdials makes the watch all the more legible to read. I don't think anyone can deny that. For its size and everything else, you need something that catches your attention. And this combination, this white and black, your eye is drawn to the depth of the black. This watch is more of a chronograph first and a watch second, okay? Just bear that in mind, a chronograph first and a watch second. Then we transition over the years. We go through the bezel, you know, I don't know if this was an aluminum bezel or if this was a Bakelite bezel. We transition over the years. We go from this like stunning, simple, easy to read dial. Paul, hi, thank you for joining. We jump to the Zenith Daytona. Now there's a huge jump between these two watches. I mean, huge. Now you have a watch that has crown guards, screw down pushes, but you've noticed that the subdials have suddenly changed. They are hollow and not solid. What this does, at least when you're talking about the design of something, is that hollowing out the subdials reduces its visual presence. So it's no longer emphasized as it would be on the normal, you know, like a normal Daytona, some kind of chronograph dial. So getting rid of that emphasis makes it less important in that way. So now you kind of have this blend where you can read the time, but you can also read the chronograph at a glance. And I don't know, it's one thing that's good about it is that it was able to differentiate itself from its competition. I mean, you see this configuration and you say that's a Daytona. That's one hell of a cool design approach that they took. But at the same time, it kind of lessens the overall ability of the chronograph being something easy to read and legible. Okay, but yes, you're just mentioning, Paul, the Panda being easy to read. Absolutely. I find it's a much easier dial to read, and this is why I chose this combination. We look at how the Zenith movement was placed. Here's something else that many people don't talk about. The Zenith movement being placed the way it was. Look at how all the subdials are perfectly centered and aligned. I mean, it's beautiful, and that is the way it should be, right? You want something that's clean. You look at the black dial variant, just the same, clean, centered, perfect. Jump over to the modern reference. Notice there's something a bit amiss. If I had to draw a line now between the subdials and the plots, all of a sudden, you notice that the plots, the subdial is being pushed up. Now, I don't know if that has to do with the caliber that Rolex introduced, now that they're using an in-house caliber for these pieces, but it's just strange. That kind of puts my eye off. You look at this gap over here, relative to the gap underneath, there's a huge open space. I might have just put many people off Daytonas, the modern Daytonas, because of that now, just seeing that imbalance. But again, saying as an everyday wearing watch, you want something that is rugged, versatile, easy to use. I've never been a fan of someone with Zenith tricolor. Are we talking about this El Primero? I don't know, I want to stick to Rolex for a second. You want something that's easy to use, easy to wear, robust, but at the same time, something that looks formal and fashionable, easy to wear, you know, just on a daily basis if you're going to a meeting or an appointment. And I think this watch ticks the bill. And another thing to highlight is that this color combination, the black ring around the white dial, makes the watch seem a lot bigger in comparison to a solid black dial, which looks smaller on the wrist, just because black tends to visually shrink the size. Anyway, so that's my Daytona tandem. I hope you guys picked up something about that. It's fascinating how the design of the watch has changed so much over the years. But again, I emphasize, I really think the polished center links on these Daytonas just completes the watch. It works in tandem with the polished case, the fully polished case. Keeps it nice and sharp. It's a stunning watch. Beautiful movement as well. I mean, automatic movement. You can't ever go wrong with the automatic chronograph. Anyway, jumping back into the lots, we have a few more pieces to run through. Again, another 6750 with service hands, which is such a pity. Another one, another transitional piece. This looks a bit cleaner. I think none of these, this is a tritium dial, but none of these plots have actually faded over time. Rectum, I love your name, by the way. I think it's pretty hilarious. I think the new ceramic ones look sort of cool. They do look cool. No getting around that. They look awesome. The White Dial Daytonas do look so much. I think they look much better. I mean, if you want something that has that punch, that visual punch, you need something with white. FYI, IDGuy, I just wanted to say, great vid on the dress watches. Thank you, Paul. Geez, is that about the Patek, the Breguet, and the Vacheron, if I'm not mistaken? I need to do more of that. This is a rare piece, and this is gorgeous. Oh, this one's going to go for a lot of money at auction. Between 12 and 15,000 estimate for its sell. It's a 1973 1675 Mark IV dial with an all red GMT hand, and that was the first thing that stuck out to me when I saw it. That is a combination. That is a bang, wouldn't you say? Gorgeous, gorgeous looking watch. I mean, and the best part of all is that nothing has been serviced. You don't have a serviced hands, no serviced dial. Beautiful thing. It does look a little bit roughed up in a few places, but you very seldom see a solid red GMT hand, and I think that's what makes it quite a fascinating piece. So yeah, be interested in hearing. It looks like they've mentioned here, they said all black faded gray, so I'm guessing the bezel has patinaed. The matte dial, as we know, kind of has that flat finish to it in any case. But gorgeous looking watch. Really, really like it. And running through a few more. What's this about? The Long E matte dial. I don't know what this is about. 1968, 1675, Mark I. Long E matte dial. Trying to look for a long E. Do they mean the E of Rolex? I've never heard of this before. Estimated sell between 9,000 and 11,000. Just looks like a standard 1675 to me. Can't see a long E anywhere, whatever they're talking about. Might just be because of the print. I do see the Rolex logo looks a little bit strange in that picture. Anyway, and Austin Daniels, Paul Austin Daniels did a great video of service bezels. I think I remember seeing it. I saw a glimpse of it. I didn't watch the whole clip. Then we jump to a Submariner, 1680, the first reference with a date complication, and 1978. This is a cool looking piece. Hodinkee did an insane Submariner clip the other day. Jeez, I mean, go and watch that. I think it came out yesterday. They ran through practically every notable reference of the Submariner before the 14060, the 5-digit references. If I remember right, I don't think they went that far. Absolutely gorgeous watches. And the thing that blew me away about them was that they were just so clean. Every single one of them is like museum, table full of subs. It's just like museum quality watches. And it's like, how do you get these things? Bakelite bezels, everything's perfect. You know, the red triangles. Oh, it's amazing. So between 8,000 and 10,000 pounds, this watch is going for. One thing I do like about these 1680s is the way the minute track is set. And it has a huge top hat crystal if you had to get it from factory. I don't know if this has been changed or whatever else, but it looks like it has the booklet, the original anchor, original case it came with. So this is probably going to go for quite a lot of money. I like the 1680s. I'm not a fan of date subs, but of all of them, a 1680 red sub is just, I mean, if you want to get a set of like 5 really iconic pieces, a 1680 red sub is one of those that you just have to get, you know. How much money was that on the table? Oh, geez, Paul, I have no idea. And thank you for clearing up, Lester. It's a font thing. This E on the Rolex, I would imagine it has to do with the E on the actual Rolex print. I don't know that well. But those Rolexes on that table, geez, I can't even remember how many they had. It must have been about 40 models, 35, millions, in the millions at least. Oh, speak of the devil. Oops, I didn't know they had this. This is a stunning 1680 red. Mark I meters first, between 30 and 35,000 pounds for this piece. I mean, that is amazing. Think about that for a value proposition. Imagine getting one of these watches in the 70s and knowing that you could put a huge deposit down on a house because of this watch. Stunning. If you want one date Submariner, you go for one of these. I mean, we can all drool over these and dream, right? Again, what's nice about this is it doesn't have any service hands or any kind of replacement. It looks all original, clean case. It doesn't look to be polished. It doesn't look like it's had a factory polish. It's all original. And that's where the money goes in. I mean, 30 grand for this piece. That's the reason. It's even got a patent pending flip extension for the diver's extension, which is great. Stunning looking piece. You can't deny the 1680s is one of those watches. It's killer. And then we have a great white 1665 Sea Dweller. Oi. Yeah, these watches to me, it's the Submariner killer. I said this in the last live stream we did the other day. It's one of those watches that just has that edge over the Submariner, and it looks too cool. Love the finishing. It looks very clean. And the price between 10 and 12,000, which means have they replaced anything? I don't think it comes with papers. I don't know. I can't read it fast enough. But a great white is one of those models. Very nice transitional model of the early period. Now that's better. Now at a desktop and it's full. Yeah. Sorry about this layout. I don't think you could imagine using this on a phone. It's quite difficult. Oh, and we jump to another sub. What's this? A 5513 from 1974 with, did they say serif? Well, hold on a second. What did they say? Feet first, non-serif ghost bezel. Okay. So the watch doesn't seem to have box and papers, but it is a ghost sub, 5513. I mean, you can't go wrong with this. Money no option. Which watch would you bid for from this list? Good question, Hans. Everyone answer that question. If money was not an option, of all the watches you've seen tonight, which would you jump on? Me personally, I would probably get that 1016 from 1966. That's a gorgeous piece. That's just so, 1966. I mean, geez, what a time to get a watch from that era. Clean, beautiful model. I don't know so much about the ghost subs are nice. But again, patina is just a novel way of saying damage. You know, it's not exact. It's kind of a blend to and fro. But a 5513, I mean, it's a great piece. Yeah, just guys keep commenting. If you had all the money in the world and you wanted one of the watches from the auction, which would you choose? I would say a 1966 Explorer 1016. Beautiful. But the ghost bezel does add something else. And an interesting fact, I've met a few people who have I mean, one guy had a 40 mil Sea Dweller, and it had a ghost bezel. It goes so under the radar. You know, that's the secret. If you want a real under the radar watch, even if you do have a 14060 Submariner yourself from the 90s, do yourself a favor and go and buy a aftermarket bezel, put it in bleach, drop the bleached bezel in, just pop it out, put a new bleach bezel in, and the watch just completely skirts under the radar. You don't need to worry about the watch being noticed anywhere near as much. It's quite a fascinating thing. The bleaching really does tone down the watch's appearance a lot overall. A pristine 321, absolutely, that would be killer. Clive Watch Wrangler, if you're watching this program, man, you got the best deal of the century. So yeah, this piece is going between 9 and 11,000 pounds. 5513 from 1974, ghost bezel. Love the fact that the dial hasn't been tampered with. The lume on the hands is all the same. It all matches, so it means that. And the case is pretty sharp. So the case hasn't been polished. Nice and clean. This watch is great. Then we jump to a 77 5513. They say pre-Comex with a maxi dial. Oops, jumping back here. This watch looks like it's been through the mill. It's been pretty thrashed. Lester, I would take a 5512 over any other Submariner if I had the chance to. That would be the one, just because of the bracelet, the end link, how it all integrates. There are a few very nice 1675s that are coming up just now. This bracelet looks like it's been thrashed, which is sad. I guess these are the folded links of the time, 1977. Yep, between 9 and 11,000 for this piece. And notice the maxi markers a little bit bigger. It looks like the bezel is also going that faded finish. It's a little bit like a faded gray, not so much ghost. Any mill subs? No, there aren't any, but there's a Tudor that I talked about earlier. It's going to be coming up just now. We're going to have a nice Tudor snowflake to look at. 72 5513 feet first. serif dial. Now, the serif dial is a fascinating watch, but there is a question here by Reza again. Sorry to keep going off topic on a tangent, but on any of the topics of Explorers, what do you think of the new generation of Explorers? And why do people not really like them like other models? The new generation of Explorers, do you mean Explorer 1s or Explorer 2s? We're talking about the 42mm Explorer 2s. I have a reason why. I have a few reasons why I could go into, but the new generation Explorer 1 is amazing. The 39mm, it's the one watch that you could wear for the rest of your life. Yeah, 39mm is a killer. The latest one with the fully loomed dial, they got rid of the gold hands and the gold numerals. That's a killer looking watch. Perfect for everyday wear, subtle, casual, easy to wear. Amalgamation of dress and sports. You can wear it anywhere, with anything, on any kind of strap. It's a killer. Cream Explorer 2 Scottish watches, absolutely. I found one earlier. I don't know if you guys saw it, but there is a Cream Explorer 2 on here. And tritium dial, untouched. Actually, let's go back and look at it quick. Just going to flip back a few pages until we get to it, because it is something to marvel at. You very seldom see one without serviced hands and all the rest. Let's get it. There it is. I mean, that is a killer looking watch. I do kind of pity the idea that it doesn't have filled in plots, all the rest. But the fact that the actual GMT bezel has lost a lot of its paint. But come on, I mean, that on your wrist, I mean, it matches a skin tone so nicely, under the radar, casual. Explorer 2s, especially these 5-digit references, are not to be trifled with. And Reza, you're repeating your question. Explorer 1. I'm under the impression that the Explorer 1, the new 39mm, are very sought after. But I think from a general circumstance, everyone just wants a Submariner. Everyone wants a GMT. Everyone wants a Daytona. The problem with something that is near to perfection, I might as well just pull up. Let's see, do I have Safari open? It's a 214270 Explorer. And let's see, I might have to type in the reference. Bob's Watches, that's a great photo. The problem is with something that is so simple and so basic, like in brackets, near to perfection. Like, this is another watch that skirts so close to perfection. This and the 14060 sub, no date, so close to perfection. The issue is it can become very boring to most people. So if you're just wearing your watch every day and enjoying it, it's no problem. But for some people that want a little bit of flash, they want like a bezel with some kind of function. That's another thing. This watch doesn't have a function. It's just a simple no-date watch with a very enigmatic, gorgeous dial. But the Explorer 1 is gorgeous. I mean, I would pick up one of these in a heartbeat. 39mm Explorer, I mean, geez, you can go anywhere with this watch. If you're coming to meet someone who has 50 Pateks as a collection, you can rock up in an Explorer 1 and the guy will go, yeah, this guy knows. If someone like Roger Smith wears an Explorer 1 on a daily basis, a 36mm 5-digit reference, you can't go wrong with it. I mean, it's beautiful. Such a stunning piece. What they've done here is they've really improved the watch a lot. They've just made the case big enough so that it fits the average wrist. They haven't oversized it like they have some other references like the Explorer 2. I'm not a fan of the Explorer 2s. We can go into that at length at a later stage. This watch just has that kind of attitude of being just Rolex. You know, what is this? It's a Rolex. We all know it is. Awesome. I'm just reading through the comments while jumping back to the 5513. So, I mean, the comments now, Explorer or the Milgauss. Yeah, rectum, absolutely. They are two of the watches. Oh, geez, it's just started thundering and lightning over here. So should be interesting. If the power suddenly goes out and the stream drops, then you'll know why. The house has been hit by a lightning bolt. Anyway, so this is a very stunning, jumping back to this piece, what have we looked at already? 5513 pre-Comex, the Maxi. This model is a feet first, which is technically a little bit more sought after. This piece has, once again, no service dial. It looks like it hasn't been polished, but I could be wrong. Looking at the lugs, they look kind of turned in. So they could have been polished before. I do really like the bezels on these older pieces. There's something about the bezel being so flat and splayed out that really plays nicely with the watch overall. What else is special about this? Accompanied by a box, GMT master tag. That's weird. Correct serial numbers. Okay, anchor. Between 9 and 11,000 pounds for this watch. Pretty crazy. Oh wow. Oh wow, I think we might have just hit nirvana. You see, this is the problem. You can't go through asking what watch you would want until you finish looking at all these pieces. Looking at Hobby Apple's comment quickly. Hold on a second. I'm just making this nice full screen. This is a 5512. This is like a late reference. What is it? A 1963 reference. Hobby Apple. Personally, I feel like the Explorer diverts a bit from the other modern Rolex watches. To me, it feels like the last modern Rolex to stick to brands to watch. Absolutely, I agree with that completely. I think it does. It has that tool watch streak in it still. And the fact that it has stayed so close to what its past was, that's one thing Rolex does well, is that they do tend to stick to what they've done in the past. It's one of the designs that is just so iconic to the watch that has lasted for decades. It's got a hell of a history behind it. I mean, you can't go wrong with an Explorer in any case. So by the looks of things, it says it's a 62. It's a 61, 5512. But there's a problem. The dial, everything, the case is beautiful, but this bracelet, I don't think it's factory, because we look at the bottom, this has a GMT style bracelet. So this bracelet could have been a replacement. And this does have a sharpened crown guard, which also adds to the watch's value overall. Beautiful finish. It's a matte dial. It doesn't look like a gloss dial piece. I feel like this watch has been replaced with a few parts, like the bezel might have been replaced. The bracelet, I don't feel is original to the watch. I mean, of course it's not, but it's a pity that they didn't have a proper clasp on the piece. Clive, Watch Wrangler. Good evening, sir. Great to have you here. We were talking about your Speedmaster earlier. There was a whole section on this page about the 321 Speedmasters and Ed White's and a whole range. You got one hell of a steal with that piece. I'm just looking through the rest. Rolex is dead. Only Patek matters now. No, in all fairness, I said this earlier about the Pontiff and his choice. I mean, he is Patek. If he loves the watch, that's all that matters at the end of the day. I mean, really, it's not up to all of us to judge. I think he is Patek Philippe. He is more Patek than Rolex. And the fact that he loves it so much, I mean, he did a video today talking about how he loves it equally to his children, to his life practically. I mean, that's awesome. It's awesome. And wearing the Omega now, good call. Come tomorrow, it's going to be quite a special day. There's been talk apparently by Tim Mosso saying that Omega is going to be releasing a 321 movement tomorrow with a new edition of pieces. I don't know. Fascinating times. Anyway, I'm just trying to catch up. If anyone's commenting on this Rolex 14060 Hans. Anyway, it's a pity about this 5512. This does not look like a... this bracelet, of course, is not standard to the watch, but the finishing is gorgeous. I mean, look at that thing. Damn. So you kind of have to wonder what was replaced. There's no message. There was an invoice, purchase receipt, secondhand, butterfly rotor. Yeah. Anyway, it's a pity. It's a gorgeous looking watch. I would still take the 1966 Explorer 1016. Now we're talking. Okay, now we're in business. This is an early reference, 5513 from 1966. Rivet style bracelets. And this, designer speaking right now. If you want a watch that really knows how to deal with bracelets and integration, nothing comes close to this on the original pieces. I think that integration of the end link relative to the bracelets, sublime. This is a matte dial, interestingly. I thought it would be a gloss dial, actually. This is a very early reference piece. As you can see, it has square crown guards. If you haven't caught up with Odinki's new video that they brought out about the Submariner, long story, I didn't actually realize that they basically produced all their watches with square crown guards in the beginning and basically just shaved them down to pointed and eagle beak and all the rest over time. Anyway, seems overpriced. Oh, we're talking about the other piece. This is a much better example. between 14 and 18,000 pounds for this piece. That is a hell of a lot. Long 5, fat font, 60-minute rotating bezel. I'm trying to read this while reading the comments, while reading the screen. Gorgeous watch. I love this configuration. If Tudor were to create bracelets that were integrated like this to the case, they would have a killing, I think, personally. Gorgeous. I don't know how many more Rolexes we had to flick through. Wow, this looks like a molested 1675. Between 8 and 10,000 pounds for this piece. This thing looks like it's been dragged through the dirt. I mean, geez, this might have been worn by a Marine. Having a look at the comments. Drinking wine, as you do. Yeah, I don't even know how long the stream's been going on for. It's just past 2 hours, so I apologize for the length. This has been, there are over 200 lots in this auction, and yeah, it's nice to talk about stuff. I hope you guys are enjoying this still. I can't read Clive's comments because they're just too funny. I can't get sidetracked. I love reading his stuff, but at the same time, I just know I'm going to get sidetracked if I do read it fully. So 1675 from 1966. Yeah, it looks like it's been beaten. And then we jump to this next. This is apparently a rare gentleman's stainless steel, 1675, with a gloss dial. But the gloss dial looks like it's been, I don't know what you would call it, fungal infection. No, it looks like it's had some serious corrosion, probably just a little bit of water leakage. I don't think it's from the tritium itself. The tritium degradation, I don't think, causes white fade to the dial. But it's interesting. It's quite a nice combination. Again, like I said in the beginning, GMT Pepsis deserve Jubilee bracelets. I think they just tie in so well together. Yeah, I'm just having a look at the comments quick. Let's just zoom in a little bit more so you can have a look at this. And I'll leave the stats of the watch up so you can have a read while we're looking at the comments. Clive Watcherang, stay tuned for AC3's latest series for Patreon viewers. So you want to be a ladyboy. Yeah, I think it was the ladyboy. That story, that whole history came and went, and then it returned when the conclave returned, when the conclave was elected. Anyway, stunning looking GMT. I really dig this. I think 1675s are really fascinating watches. Reza is talking to Han, saying, if you had the steel ceramic Daytona white dial and got, say, the Explorer 1, which would you wear? Which you wear the Explorer as everyday watch and Daytona as a dressy piece? Yes, that's a very good question or statement, Reza. I'd say Explorer 1 is a better everyday watch by far. It's a lot less in your face. Ooh, here we go. The money ball. There's your example of a 1675. 1961, 1675 with a tropical dial, faded bezel. Yeah, this is pretty much vintage in a package right here. I'll just try and zoom it in for you guys to have a look at while I sit back and enjoy reading the comments. I don't know, there aren't many comments going on. I just see Clive. It came, then it took a nap, sipped on some Gatorade, and came again. Oh, geez. I'm trying to keep this page PG, Clive. I know it's I know it's difficult to do. We're all yeah. Anyway, this is a beautiful example. This has more of an eagle beak style crown guard setup, bleach bezel, tropical that seems to be focusing more on the left-hand side of the dial. Oh, that's a pity. The fact that the tritium has actually left some of the plot. But again, a GMT on a Jubilee is just killer. It just works so well as a combo. Between 18 and 22,000 is the so-called estimated price that this will be going for. Gorgeous looking watch. And you can't deny it. This is one of the watches, I mean, the 1675. Can't do anything wrong with that. Next piece. Hey, check it out. Tudor Oyster Prince, self-winding. This is a 63 with a gloss dial, gilt chapter ring, silver font. Sadly, it doesn't come on an original bracelet, but it does have leather strap to go with it. I don't know why they would supply these watches on a leather strap. I would just ask for the watch head only, Vintage minefield. Clive, you might be right. I mean, these guys seem pretty well-rounded. They seem to know their stuff, but vintage watches in general is a minefield. And but of course, this is an auction house. I mean, they can't beat all that bad. Lovely little Tudor oyster print. And I think the next watch is a snowflake. And I will briefly touch on what I spoke about in the last video about snowflakes being one of the watches that really speaks to me as a sports watch. No, we got some more. 67 gilt tracking white font. Not bad. Very roughed up. I've never understood how you can leave this kind of, I don't know if that's wear, if that's gunk, if that's fecal matter, you know, I don't know what it is inside those end links, but you know how quick it is to just remove the end link, clean it up and put it back together. Anyway, it's okay. It looks pretty worn. It looks like it's been used and abused in his lifetime. Oh, geez. Gonna have a chat battle here. Hans, agreed Hans. Yeah, talking about that. Fecal matter. Yeah, Clive, I just said it. That's the that's the line I used. Defecation. Another piece, like I said earlier, I'm not really a fan of these Tudors with these spiky sort of indices at the 15s. It doesn't really look as good as the snowflake that I hope we'll get to now. Aha, there we go. Now this watch, the snowflake, this image was listed on Chrono 24, and I looked through it the other day. It's so cool. I think the Tudor snowflake is one of those watches that is appreciated, underappreciated. I mean, nowadays they're going for the same price as Rolex, so it's quite a fascinating history. This is a 1974 reference 7016, and the combination, and just design speak again, the combination of your square batons with your rectangles, you got your square hour hand, square seconds hand, it all just plays in tandem. You know, there's this relationship between all these parts. Then you have the triangle at the 12 o'clock position that centers your eye completely. And when it comes to reading this watch, I believe this is more legible than a Submariner. And it's partly a reason why many who were in the service and used these watches found these to be more legible than standard Submariners. It's a gorgeous piece. And there's, I'm just looking at the comments. If anyone's interested in the price, between 5,000 and 7,000 pounds, this piece is going for. Gorgeous. Again, integrated bracelet. I think it's such a killer look, even though it's very rattly, and we know it probably sounds like you got loose change in your pocket, but hey. We got a Shanshang Shukala, he's back. I don't know how to say your name, but good to see you. I've tried to hold on to the stream a little bit longer today just because I know in America it's a little bit, the time is a bit delayed, and someone was watching from California earlier, so it's good. India, 4 a.m. You, sir, deserve one of these watches. Just, I can respect for joining. Congratulations. Thank you for joining, really. Anyway, we've got some more Tudor pieces, and these ones look like they've been pretty hammered in their lifetime. This is a 9401. So very similar to the 7016. It's just a later reference, 1977. Faded dial, faded bezel. I don't know what's going on. I think this is the acrylic that's fading away here. And then move down to this. I do not understand what this is inside the retort. This looks like tritium rust, some kind of corrosion. This is a 9411, 1976. 2784. I'm guessing this is an ETA-based caliber. The date complication. Pretty clean. I mean, the watch looks pretty clean. It looks like the case has been polished, but overall, pretty nice. It's just, you know, take the crystal off and clean that gunk off on the inside, please. Here's another example. Rare Gentleman Snowflake with a ghost bezel. I must say the blue on blue looks fantastic. Blue on blue, and looks like the tritium hasn't faded on this watch, which looks pretty awesome. You know, the white of the indices, the batons relative to the gray of the bezel looks superb. Really nice. Anyway, this stream has been dragging on a lot. I'm sure a lot of people have dropped out. We only have like 38 people watching. Oh, geez. This is all just for the archives. You know, I'm not going to be doing this every week. I might do it on a Saturday maybe, but we're going to be getting back to our regular scheduled programming at later stages next week. Really nice piece. Like the combination, like the colors. I think it looks cool. And now we jump back to Tudor oyster dates and day dates. I think we've kind of passed the sports pieces overall. So I'm just going to flick through these and have a look. We've got some 5500 pieces, 1980s, Air Kings, Oyster Perpetual dates, date justs, you know, just the usual stuff. Jeez. We've gone through a lot of watches tonight, everyone. Jeez. Thank you for sticking by, those who have. It's a hell of a series. 1973 with a pyramid style bezel. These are all vintage perpetuals. Nice and clean. 1963 18 karat gold piece. It's pretty nice. All of these watches are about 35, 34 millimeters in size. Anyway, Despair Kings. Despair Kings. Oh, that's so good. I don't know how you do it, Clive. You must, I don't know, you bring these one-liners in. I mean, I've been criticized in my life many times when I was a youngster for one-liners. I mean, I was called into principal's offices, but you seem to just be on another level. I can't imagine what you were like when you were my age. This is a gorgeous piece. I want to stop on this. This is a 1957 sword marker, just a standard perpetual. It's a 6424, they call it, oyster precision. Beautiful hands. I love how they work in tandem with the dial. It's very stunning. Nice and clean. Doesn't look like it's been polished. Again, like the integration of the bracelet and the end links. Yeah, it's too cool. But are we all going to be joining in on the Pontiff's stream tonight? I hear there's a question. I'm definitely going to join in for a while, have a look. I'd be interested in hearing his thinking behind the watch, because he should have gone for a rose gold piece, in all fairness. Two white golds and two yellow golds. I mean, all respect, I think Patek is a great choice for him. It fits his build, sorts him out well. Clyde can't remember back that far. Monsignor Neo, that's not very nice. Another watch I mentioned earlier, if you really like your mind blown on a beautiful World War I Omega, open up a tab on Google right now and type in Lawrence of Arabia Omega. Stunning looking watch. And he wore it all through his time when he was in Arabia, going through that whole campaign. Anyway, yeah, so I'm sure when this stream finishes, we can all join in on the Pontiff stream. I'm definitely going to join in for a little while. I'm quite bushed, must say. Friday being a final day of the week, you work yourself to death. We're just looking through some oyster dates, and then we have Bahrain. We have all these branded pieces now from Bahrain. This is an oil company, apparently, on the Air Kings. I must say, it's very cool having crests put on your pieces. Imagine having like family insignias stamped on Rolex pieces nowadays. I'm not going to read that comment out loud, Clive. That's a good one once again. That's one of the best of the evening. Funny story, had guys called Labia in my class back in the day. Two guys with the surname Labia. And let's just say, when we were going through biology talking about sexual health, they did not have a good time in the classroom. And this is one of the highlights of the collection as well. This is a Omani Kunjar presented date just. This is a gorgeous looking date just. Geez, and it's got a gold crown Buckley dial. Once again, I don't know where the name Buckley dial comes from. It's a word that I've searched a lot for on Google, but I've never found anything like clear cut. Anyway, I know Theo and Harris talks about Buckley dials all the time, but it almost feels like a manufactured word that they came up with to explain the watches, because it's just so underspoken about, you know. Between £6,000 and £7,000 for this piece. Interesting combination. I really like that motif. I think that element, the swords, I don't know what all the details mean exactly, but I think it's a nice symmetrical sort of finish to the stamp. William Buckley, noted Rolex collector and historian. Thank you, Clive. I need to look at that more. I haven't researched that enough. So he basically heralded the name for himself and said, well, I'm going to call this dial my own. And then just closing off, we've got chronograph. This is kind of like I really wish they brought the chronographs back. I think it's a very underutilized element to the watches nowadays. It would make a big splash. If you had to put a chronograph bezel on a modern Air King, it makes such a difference. I think they would sell like hotcakes. 1976, 1601, Jubilee bracelet. Again, this combination, I think a date just on a Jubilee just sings. It's the way it should be. Looks stunning. The swords are meant to resemble, yes. I'm just looking at these comments. Hans and Reza are having a solid chat about Explorers, Daytonas, and Submariners. It's great. And then again, we're going through more date justs. These are kind of like the dregs of the lot, basically. I don't know how many people still collect and buy date justs in the bucket loads today. 1976, I do like this gold scented bracelet. I think that's nice and clean. Also like the standard bezel, no fluting, nice and clean. I haven't seen any 1530s. I haven't actually been looking at the references, Clive. I've just been scrolling through the watches themselves. I've been going through, I'm on lot 200. So like 200 of these watches have been covered today. I'm quite sick and tired of looking at watches now. I'm sure many have. I mean, we're losing people like flies. And not many people are watching anymore. 1601, many of these examples. I hope you can all see the pricings on the list. Now check out this dial. I've never seen this dial before, and it's fascinating. It's a boiler gauge dial, they call it. And look at that. What do you think about that? I think Arabic numerals on a date just really ties it nicely together. It gives it a nice effect overall, wouldn't you say? Looks very cool. Very, very cool. And thank you, Reza. Thank you very much for the appreciation. Yeah, just enjoying it. Tonight, I mean, the other night when I did the live stream, I was on edge. For the first 40 minutes, I was losing it. Like, I didn't know what I was doing, how I was doing it. Just, whiskey was helping me through it. Tonight, sitting back, relaxing, just grinding through these, having a good look, just appreciating some vintage stuff. I think this combination, a black dial with gold setting, that is such a gorgeous date just combination. Gorgeous. And going back, I just want to go back to this piece again. Going back to this, it's a crazy looking dial, wouldn't you say? Crazy numerals. So strange. I mean, the noughts are actually offset. The nines have weird holes. It almost looks like there's a mention of a Franken watch. It seems like a Franken watch. I've never seen one before. It must be quite rare in that case. And it's going for between 2.5 and 2,800 pounds. It's quite a lot. Just scrolling through the next set. Let's see. I mean, in the ideal world for me, we have gold with a Roman numeral set. Gold Roman numeral set on a black dial just looks clean. Dig it. Track looks like it's hand drawn. Yeah, you never know. I mean, geez, these are all from the the 80s. You never know what happened during the 80s. Well, we kind of do, kind of don't. A 1990 champagne solid gold. I think gold on gold with any Rolex, especially these models with a thin fluted bezel, looks great. These vintage date justs are really something because they call this an oyster perpetual date. The fluting on the bezels were just so good in those days. Nowadays, it's all about flash and bling and everything needs to be big and brash. Back in these days, they were subtle. They should have stayed subtle. Not everything needs to be in your face. This is a 1986 15008. I know very little to nothing on date justs, something I should cover in more detail, study up. Between 5,000 and 6,000 for this piece. And if it's a 1986 model, why does it have a rivet bracelet and that setup? That looks kind of out of date, wouldn't you say? Very strange. Anyway, going to keep going. I think we're almost coming to the end. Almost coming to the end. Universal Jalive. This is a Medico Compax pulsation dial. Medico Compax. I guess that kind of explains it. It's a doctor's watch. I'm pretty sure. I mean, Medico, right? With a pulsation dial, easy to check a pulse of someone or your pulse. Not bad. Okay, very interesting. I mean, if you go back to the beginning of the stream, I run through all the older references. There's so many old references beforehand. Out of date, the date justs. I kind of think they do. I kind of think they are in a way. They might catch on again in maybe 5 years' time. But now that the market is so hot for steel sports Rolex, it's almost like the rest of Rolex just falls to the wayside. Here's another Medico compact. This is a Universal Geneve. Let's see, between £3,500 and £4,500. 17 jewel, caliber 285 movement. Nice watch. Pulsation dial once again. And now we have the original Universal Geneve pole router. If I'm not mistaken, designed by Gerald Genter. 1955, this piece. Pretty superb. Like the combination. Easy to look at, easy to read. Doesn't really appeal to me as a watch that I would want to own, but you can kind of appreciate what he was going for, kind of like that 60s. This was a pre-60s inspired design in many ways. Anyway, and a few more pieces. We've got a 1969 Zenith Divers chronograph. Interesting watch, interesting combination. I like the details. So again, you have a rotating bezel, diver function, all of that goodness. Nice looking piece from 1969. But look at that bracelet. What do you call those bracelets again? You almost call them like hollow scented bracelets. I remember seeing it the other day. Very old-fashioned inspired bracelet. I don't know why they're thinking. I guess they were just trying to save on material in those days. But it is a gorgeous looking watch. The layout looks superb. Love the little lollipops on the bezel itself. I think that ties it in nicely. And everything's nice and symmetrical, nice and clean overall. The watch is going between £5,000 and £7,000, they believe. And then a few more Zeniths, 1950s, between 1,200 and 1,500. Yeah, it's okay. Not that bad. Then we jumped lastly to Vacheron. I think this is one of the last few lots altogether. 1960, 18 karat gold, gorgeous piece. I'm trying to look at the case size. 36 mil case size. So this could kind of work for a lot of people. Between 2,500 and 3,000 pounds for this piece. Gorgeous. And then one of the last lots, I think, is this Vacheron with the teardrop lugs, between 3,500 and 4,000 pounds for this, from 1950. Not bad. This design, it's amazing just how the design has changed so much over the decades. How this style has pretty much just shriveled up and died. Companies just don't make these anymore. I'm just reading what Scottish watches are saying about the old bracelets. Cool to wear, but take a bit of getting used to. You see, exactly. And can you imagine the tan marks on your wrist from that? I mean, it must be crazy. You got these like square, people must think you've got like a condition or something, having these square marks all over your wrist from the bracelet. And I think we've come to the end of the lots. This is a deep sea oyster water resistance proofing test from the 60s. So you would put your watch in here. This must be very valuable, actually. You drop your Rolex watch in here, you crank it up, you test the pressure of it, and you'll be able to know what depth it'll be able to travel to. And here are a few more. Another Rolex oyster. I'm not even going to try and explain that word. Water resistance, water pressure testing tool from the 60s. Drop the watch in, crank the gadget, and basically fill it up to a point where the crystal can't take any more and explodes off the watch itself. Anyway, stunning looking watches. I saw that as Gay Ferrez. Was that was it, eh? I'm trying to, geez, there are so many. I don't know. I've gone through so many watches now that I'm kind of losing touch. And there we go. This is just like the quality check on the list. Not bad. So I'm going to now just jump back to Rolex one more time, just to look at the one that I believe won the auction. And let's see if we can find it. I'm just going to scroll back. The one watch that I think won the auction over all of them, for me at least, and what I would take over all of these pieces if I had a chance, would be, geez, this is a good contender. Creamy Dial Explorer is superb. But the one watch, it would be the 1016 from 1968. That watch wins the show for me overall. So, yeah, it's been a hell of a discussion tonight, everyone. Geez, thank you for tuning in. This was a lot of coverage, and the reason why I did it was to just try to reach out to those who might be interested in Watches of Knightsbridge and the auction that's happening tomorrow, 20th of July, 2019. If you're interested in bidding, I think you can still go and view the watches. The auctioning is starting tomorrow. But fascinating series. I think the collection of watches in this lineup is really something cool. And what's nice is that you go from everything from old school dress to something a bit more contemporary, modern. It's got a full package of all sorts of stuff. Yeah, the 36mm Explorers. Yeah, that's one reason why I brought it up, Clive. But his was from the 80s. This is a real gem. This is from 1968, with original box, certificate, guarantee booklet, sold in 1972. I think it's a one-owner watch. Gorgeous condition, apart from the clasp and the bracelet being a bit scratched. The dial is just beautiful. I think this one just wins the show for me overall. What a talk. What a stream. I hope you guys have enjoyed it. I hope I haven't prattled on too long. It's only been, what, 2.5 hours of me talking? Can't believe I did it. But with an opportunity like this, when everything is laid out in front of you and you have a full selection of watches to page through, I mean, it's like a gift on your 30. How about this? Does this do anything for you, Clive? I mean, this is real. I was just talking to some guys. They were saying it's kind of rock and roll. It kind of looks like the watch that the Jimmy Page or no, Robert Plant and Zeppelin would be wearing on the stage, right? 36mm Explorers don't do anything for you. Yeah, less than nothing for me. Yes, that was a funny video. Funny stream from years ago. But yeah, guys, what I'm going to do now is bring this to a close because we have really spoken about watches at length. I think if you've had your watch full for the evening tonight, so I'm going to just go from sharing the screen to stop sharing and just kind of close off with a few closing touches, just replying to a few more comments. The content created itself tonight. That's exactly the reason why I chose it. Instead of coming up with a topic, I think this is the first time I've actually been able to find a brochure. Again, go on to Watches of Knightsbridge. You can download the full brochure from their website. It's about 150 pages, and they've got all the lots. It's a beautiful catalog. They've got everything photographed, everything explained, all the movements, the ownership, and just page through it. It's like a magazine for all of us who love this stuff. Very seldom that you see auction houses have lots and everything else presented in a documented format. But ladies and gentlemen, that's been it for the evening. We started off with like 100 people watching. Now we're down to 38. So it's pretty cool. I've killed off a lot of people tonight because this was one hell of a long discussion. But I hope you guys have enjoyed it. Thomas Burnett, thank you. You're like one of the most devoted watch lovers on any platform by the sounds of things. Means a lot that you guys can come and appreciate this stuff. I don't know, it's so nice being able to sit back, relax, and just talk about this stuff instead of continually writing out reviews and essays about these things. It's nice to just prattle on for hours with no end in sight. Yeah, Thomas Burnett is a legend. This guy really needs, he's a machine. I don't even know. I think he's based in the UK. I hope he's based in the UK. I mean, I don't know. You seem to be up at like 5 in the morning watching these live streams, and you're always there, like first every single time on every stream. It's incredible. Scottish Watches, love your stuff. It's so good. Love to be a part of the show one of these days. It'd be nice to chat to you guys, just chat about what's been going on. You're in Yorkshire. Good stuff. I hope the weather's better up there than it is here at the moment. UK-based bot. Yeah, I'm in the south. I'm right on the coast, and it's currently chucking with rain down here. I know the north has been experiencing a lot. Collaboration with Bark and Jack. I would love to chat to Adrian. It would be very nice. But I want to try and limit these live streams. I don't want them to become a like weekly religious thing. I want them to be spare. I want to still focus on what I started, which was the writing about watch design. That's really what I wanted to hone in on. And there's just so much content, but the issue is just time. Time is, ironically, time is the factor that really plays. It takes between 10 and 12 hours to prepare a video, even if it's 11 minutes long. The writing takes time, the editing of like 40 plus photos. It's quite draining. I mean, it takes a good 4 or 5 hours of my day when I work on them, and I kind of split it between 3 days to get it done. Thoughts on JLC, Andre? It's a fantastic brand. I mean, geez, it's one of the most underrated brands. They don't call them the watchmaker's watchmaker for nothing. Stunning watches. I mean, I'm definitely going to be doing chats about the Reverso, the history behind that, and running through. One of my favorite watches is a JLC Master Compressor Memo Vox. But there's so much content available. It's just coming together and really honing in. Again, I need to be inspired. You know, that's another thing that kicks you hard on a day when. What I try and do is try and base it out. You know, you start with a Patek on one day, Rolex, Omega, standard kind of stuff, and then wanting to diversify and jump to something like Tag Heuer. You have to be inspired to write about these things, or else the enthusiasm doesn't come through in the presentations you're given. You know, and sometimes it can be hard. It can be a grind. Life is hard, you know. But yeah, that's about it, everyone. That's me for the evening. It's now currently what, 11:30 here in the UK. I don't know what time it is in the rest of the world where you are, but you guys are great for sticking through and for listening to everything. I'm going to keep this on the page. It's just going to be a long stream for everyone to watch and enjoy. I hope you've enjoyed it, at least. In the video, by the way, in this video, I spoke that there is a reverso from the 1930s, 18 karat gold, beautiful watch. The geophysics, it's a nice watch. I don't actually know it well enough to give you some details about it, but it is a cool looking piece overall. Life is hard, exactly, Clive. So, but I'm going to end it here, I think. What's the timestamp we're looking at now? 2:35. That's a good time to end. So everyone, thank you very much for watching. I'm going to go back, review all of this, edit it a little bit, put in some little hallmarkers in the corner, you know, those little suggested videos for you to look at, because I do talk about things that I've spoken about in the past. And yeah, let's enjoy the rest of our evening. And I definitely will be tuning into some other streams that are happening. I did want to do this on Saturday, but this event is happening tomorrow. So I thought if anyone's interested in bidding on something, you might be keen. But tomorrow is a big day, moon landing. And I'm sure Dr. Bruce is going to be denying that it ever happened. And there's going to be a whole tirade about that tomorrow, which would be interesting. But guys, thank you so much for joining. And Clive, thank you. And I must have preached, Clive, really, thank you very much for mentioning me on the Archie live stream the other day. You and the doc, I joined in for a second, and just as you started mentioning the page, I left. And you guys were talking about the videos I've featured and everything else. It really means a lot. I mean, geez, I'm just doing this for the fun. I'm not trying to push out anything on people. It's all about the fun of design, watches. That's it. You know, you don't need to have a hidden agenda behind any of this stuff. Yeah, it's the way it should be. But, you know, I wanted to be the kind of like design watch journalist that isn't around nowadays. It's more, most blogs are all about promotion, where this is trying to hone in on stuff. Anyway, all, thank you very much for joining. I'm going to stop the broadcast here. Have a great morning, evening, afternoon, wherever you are. Some of you guys who are up at 4 in the morning, please get to sleep. I mean, this stuff is, this is great, but it's not worthy to stay up that late for. Anyway, guys, thank you so much for joining in, and it's been an awesome stream. I hope to do another one of these next week, Saturday. I think will be good, and maybe hone in on chronographs specifically and have a good long chat about all of that. Anyway, guys, thank you very much. Chat soon. See you later. Cheers.